Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the September 19th meeting of the Santa Rosa City Council. Ms. Gomez, would you announce the roll, please?
Let the record show that all council members are present, with the exception of Councilmember Olivares.
All right, and I think we expect Mr. Olivares later on. He's en route. Ms. Gallagher, a report on closed session, please.
The council met in closed session regarding the anticipated litigation concerning the California Voting Rights Act. Agenda item 2.1. There was no action taken. I might, though, use this as an opportunity, if I may, Mr. Mayor, to let the public know that the city now has a link on its website to the actions that the city is taking in connection with the proposed transition to district elections. And I was just trying to find that link, but if you go on the city's website, it should, and do a search. It is under district elections, district-based elections. So all the information will be there. We will be posting calendars. We will be posting any information that might be helpful to the public. And I will also let the public know at this point that we do have a schedule for public hearings. There will be 2 public hearings to receive general public input on the concept of district elections. Those 2 meetings will be on October 3rd and October 10th. Those will be prior to the drafting of any proposed district lines. There will then be 2 subsequent public hearings before the council after we have some draft maps. The maps will be posted at least 7 days before those public hearings. The first of those public hearings will be on on November 1st, and the second will be on November 14th. We do anticipate and have scheduled for introduction. The introduction of a proposed ordinance is proposed for the November 14th council meeting. Final action may be taken on November 21st at that meeting. These are all, we have those all scheduled now. We would encourage people to keep alert online, and we will make any adjustments to that schedule will be publicized very broadly to make sure everyone knows. In addition to those 4 or 5 public meetings before the council, 4 public hearings, we will also be holding several community-based meetings, locations to be specified, but those are tentatively scheduled for October 18th and October 19th. And we will let folks know as soon as we have the times. Once the dates are settled and we have times and locations, we'll make sure that those are very broadly advertised. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. We have a few proclamations tonight. 6.1 is for Falls Prevention Week. I believe Mr. Sawyer has this one.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, having a 90-year-old father who I'm always harping on to be as careful as he possibly can be, and he's always telling me he's being very, very careful. And while he gets up on ladders, and Dad, ladders are not your friend, knock it off. And of course, he tells me he's listening to me, but I know that he tries to be careful, but accidents happen. So this is a proclamation that speaks to that. And Dr. Khanna, if you'd like to come forward, and while I read this, and you may have some comments to make after I read the proclamation. Right in front of the mic. There you go. Whereas falls are the leading cause of injuries requiring hospitalization or treatment and injury-related deaths in California, with the vast majority of these occurring among older individuals. And whereas falls are preventable when education, awareness, and interventions are put in place. And whereas the nationally ranked evidence-based A Matter of Balance program is sponsored by the Sonoma County Area Agency on Aging with partner agencies and trained volunteers to raise seniors' confidence about their balance and increase their activity levels to reduce risk of falls. And whereas since A Matter of Balance began in Sonoma County, approximately 1,250 older adults have participated in classes taught throughout the county. 137 sessions have been provided by 19 volunteer coaches, serving 154 seniors in fiscal year 2016 and 17. And whereas injuries from falls are a community health problem, with many organizations, agencies, healthcare providers, and individuals working to raise awareness, provide resources to prevent falls, and help those who suffer from complications from falls. And whereas the first day of fall, September 22nd, 2017, has been declared National Falls Prevention Awareness Day, and the 2017 theme is 10 years standing together to prevent falls. And whereas by legislative resolution of 2008, California has established the first week of fall as Falls Prevention Awareness Week. Now therefore be resolved that Chris Corsi, Mayor of the City of Santa Rosa, on behalf of the entire City Council, is hereby proclaimed the week of September 22nd through the 28th, 2017 Falls Prevention Awareness Week, signed by the Mayor on this date.
Thank you very much. And I feel very honored to receive the proclamation on behalf of the Sonoma County Area Agency for Aging. And it's such a pleasure to see the real people with the names that I read very often in the newspaper. So it's another opportunity, and I'm very pleased to receive the proclamation on behalf of the Sonoma County Area Agency. I think you mentioned falls prevention is a very important challenge, because we know that most of the active adults are amenable to falls, and many of us probably have either a friend or a family who has received major medical intervention, sometimes death even, because of the falls. And we know that it's not just a question of hold on, don't fall. It's more a question of making people aware of, especially as we get older and weaker, to making people aware that strength training is very important, being aware, creating atmosphere at home. There are a lot of technologies available, and simple ones, that they can, in fact, prevent falls. So we hope that that there will be effort not just for the week, but for the whole year and continuously to help continue to create awareness. And the county our Sonoma County Area Agency of Aging is dedicated through its Matter of Balance program and other programs to prevent falls in our active adults. So thank you very much for your proclamation.
Well, thank you for the work that you do and for keeping this very important issue in front of us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor, and congratulations. All right, our next proclamation is for Gang Prevention Awareness Week. Jason Carter, Serena Lino, and Salvador Strawbridge. Mr. Schwedhelm has this one.
Thank you. It's nice to see everyone's still smiling face after seeing those same smiling faces about 7:30 this morning at the seminar. So it's my pleasure to read this proclamation for Gang Prevention Awareness Week. So whereas the Santa Rosa Violence Prevention Partnership, aka the Partnership, is a transparent and collaborative effort of over 50 organizations involving parents, schools, community, and faith-based organizations, as well as government and local law enforcement. And whereas the focus of this work is to strengthen youth and families and to create safe communities by leading, mobilizing, and aligning our community resources for Santa Rosa youth to connect with their families, schools, communities, and futures. And whereas the long-range goal of the partnership is to create a unified and continuous service delivery system of shared accountability that streamlines all local youth and gang violence awareness, prevention, intervention, and reentry efforts, thus creating a public health model aimed at supporting Santa Rosa youth and families. And whereas the partnership is working to implement a well-coordinated continuum of services through the fundamental pillars: invest, lead, and educate, aimed at building resiliency in youth and keeping Santa Rosa families safe and engaged at schools, community centers, parks, and throughout our neighborhoods. And whereas the partnership continuously enhances its community outreach and awareness strategies of informing and educating the public about the partnership's efforts, impact, and outcomes aimed at preventing youth and gang violence. And whereas the partnership has served over 30,000 youth and families through Measure O funding, thank you to the community, since 2004 by aligning and mobilizing partners such as the Boys and Girls Club of Central Sonoma County, California Youth Outreach, Community Action Partnership, Social Advocates for Youth, and various organizations and initiatives that align with the mission, vision, and values of the partnership. Now, therefore, it be resolved that Chris Corsi, Mayor of the City of Santa Rosa, on behalf of the entire City Council, proclaim the week of September 15th through the 23rd, 2017, to be the 9th Annual Gang Prevention Awareness Week. And Jason, I'm hoping you'll be more than happy to share with everyone listening and in attendance about some of the events we've had, including yesterday or 2 days ago's big event.
Mayor Corsi, council members, thank you so much for recognizing Gang Prevention Awareness Week on behalf of the Santa Rosa Violence Prevention Partnership. I'd also like to extend a thank you to City Management, Sean, Gloria, and Klua for their leadership and support of the partnership's collaborative efforts. As you had mentioned, the core pillars of the partnership are invest, lead, and educate, and we could not do this without the partnership staff. So I'd like to take a moment just to recognize Julie Guerin, our wraparound coordinator, Serena Lino, our program analyst, and Salvador Sanchez Strawbridge, our community outreach specialist. One of the ways that we do educate our community and partner with our youth and families is Gang Prevention Awareness Week. It's a way for us to showcase some of our partners and our collaborative efforts in reducing youth and gang violence in the city of Santa Rosa. And today, we literally just rushed over here from the seminar where we had almost 200 attendees talking about resiliency and building more of a trauma-informed community. And we also have 3 more opportunities that are coming up during Gang Prevention Awareness Week. Our parent awareness training, which is tomorrow night, night walk in the West 9th neighborhood, which is September 22nd, and the South Park Day and Night Festival on September 23rd. And of course, we have Chris Rogers, AKA Mount Crushmore, that went toe-to-toe with the West County Rocky Balboa at the mall. So we appreciate being able to highlight some of the youth's efforts with the Salvation Army Double Punches program. So as a team, we appreciate the support and the ongoing leadership that you provide for us, because without your leadership and the support and partnership with our youth and families, we cannot do what we do. So thank you very much.
All right, congratulations. Next proclamation is for National Hispanic Heritage Month. Mr. Rogers has this one, and members of the Roseland Parent Group are with us today.
All right. So whereas during National Hispanic Heritage Month, we recognize contributions made by Latino Americans, the fastest growing ethnic communities in Sonoma County and the United States, celebrating their heritage and culture. And whereas Santa Rosa has a long history of welcoming immigrants that is home to a growing multi-ethnic and multicultural Latino population, including citizens from Mexico, Central America, South America, and the Caribbean, all of whom enrich our community with traditions that broaden our experiences, bring us closer, and shape our character. And whereas the diverse Latino population of Santa Rosa contributes significantly to our economy and provides positive influences through strong commitments to family, education, professional advancement, vibrant culture, and service to the community. And whereas for the last 4 years, the Roseland Parents Club, a group of Roseland parents with support from St. Joseph's Health and in collaboration with organizations such as the Sonoma County Community Development Commission, Sonoma County Department of Health Services, Sonoma County Regional Parks, Community Action Partnership of Sonoma's Community Building Initiative, and Raíces Colectivas is working to make a positive health change for Roseland residents, creating and championing access to food health, safe spaces for exercise, and community education opportunities. And whereas the Roseland Parents Club currently facilitates low-cost daily exercise classes, free basic nutrition classes, as well as free embroidery, cross-stitch, and craft classes, all of which offer time for learning, friendship, and support. And whereas the City of Santa Rosa recognizes the achievements of Latinos in Sonoma County and celebrates their contributions to enrich our community. Now therefore be it resolved by Chris Corsi, Mayor of the City of Santa Rosa, on behalf of the entire City Council, and in collaboration with the City of Santa Rosa's Inclusion Council, do hereby thank the Roseland Parent Club and its supporters for their work building a better future for all of the residents of our community, and hereby proclaim September 15th through October 15th, 2017 to be National Hispanic Heritage Month.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm just going to say this in Spanish, but my colleague here, she's going to say everything in English, so it's the same thing that I'm going to be saying. So, hola, buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Elsa Tapia Rodríguez y es un honor para mí hablar en representación del Roseland Parent Club, el cual actualmente se encuentra en transición hacia un nuevo nombre. Su nuevo nombre será Community Club of Roseland. La razón es que estamos formalizando un comité para traer nuevos programas a nuestra comunidad de Roseland. Queremos agradecer y hacer mención a varias personas que a lo largo de este camino nos han ayudado. Queremos comenzar con Hill. Queremos dar las gracias a Teresa López, San Joseph Health. Queremos agradecer a Chelín López, a Lucy Hernández. Y también queremos agradecer a Community Development Commission of Sonoma por permitirnos utilizar el edificio en el cual brindamos actualmente nuestros servicios, de los cuales yo personalmente, varias de mis compañeras aquí presentes y mucha gente más se ha beneficiado. Como sabrán, muy pronto el edificio en el cual nos encontramos, en el cual brindamos nuestros servicios, será demolido, por lo cual estamos pidiendo por favor de su ayuda para que nos ayuden con un establecimiento fijo, para poder seguir ofreciendo nuestros servicios y poder cumplir con nuestra meta de seguir ayudando a crear comunidades sanas y saludables en la comunidad de Roseland, obviamente. Los invitamos también a que vengan a conocer de los servicios que impactan positivamente a nuestra comunidad. Una vez más, a nombre de todas mis compañeras, les damos las gracias.
Good afternoon. My name is Carmen Flores, and it's an honor for me to speak on behalf of Roseland Parent Club, which is currently in transaction. The reason we are formalizing our committee to create more services for our Roseland community. We would like to thank the people that over this period of time they have been given support our work and working with us. Here, Teresa Lopez, San Joseph Health, Chelín Lopez, and Luz Hernandez. Also to the CDC, Community Development Commission of Sonoma, for lending a space. As you will know, and very soon the building where we offer our services, will we offer our service will be demolished. So we hope that you will take us into consideration, supporting us with a fixed and stable place to continue our goal for further improving the health and well-being for our community in Roseland. Thank you.
Thank you all very much. Thank you all for coming today, and thanks for your good work in Roseland as well. We have no staff briefings today. Ms. Hurtado, do you have a city manager's report?
No report, Mayor. Thank you.
And Ms. Gallagher, a report from the city attorney?
Nothing to report today.
Ms. Gallagher, we had been under the impression that the Jennings Railroad crossing of the SMART tracks was going to be taken up by the SMART board sometime this month. Do you know what the status of that contract is?
As I understand it, Mr. Mayor, is that the SMART general manager is holding up that contract. As you probably recall, the City Council approved that contract back last November 29th. From our side, the contract is all ready to go. I have spoken with the Office of the SMART General Counsel. They have confirmed that their legal department has approved the contract, and the staff has approved the contract, that it is ready to go to the SMART Board of Directors, but that, again, the general manager is holding that up. He has indicated that he will not bring it to the SMART Board of Directors until such time as the city and SMART have reached agreement on a separate agreement, which is an agreement for the long-term maintenance of the quiet zones, the rail line quiet zones. So I do not know of a date when the Jennings Crossings agreement will go to the SMART board. Again, that agreement would provide the city, under that agreement, the city will provide SMART $1.8 million, a little over $1.8 million to construct an at-grade pedestrian and bicycle rail crossing at Jennings Avenue. You may ask also the status of the quiet zone maintenance agreement. We have been in negotiations with SMART, and we have worked with, our office has worked with attorneys from Novato, Petaluma, Cotati, Rohnert Park, Healdsburg, and the County of Sonoma in trying to get a form of maintenance agreement that is acceptable to all of the jurisdictions and that will provide some uniformity across the rail line while also protecting the city's interests. And SMART's general counsel has assented to that unified approach, so we are continuing on that. A draft was provided to the SMART office of the general counsel on August 29th. That's the most recent draft that has been provided to them. We have been hoping for a meeting with all of the representatives of the various jurisdictions, but we have not yet heard back from their general counsel, and the meeting has not yet been set up. So that's where we stand as I understand it at this point.
Is it necessary, in your opinion, to have an agreement on the quiet zones in order for the Jennings crossing to be operational?
No. Again, the Jennings Crossing Agreement will provide funding for construction of the agreement. The maintenance will be a much broader agreement that provides for long-term maintenance of the quiet zones. I have reviewed the two agreements, and I find no legal nexus between the two. I have also had a conversation with a representative from SMART's general counsel, one of the attorneys there, and he has also confirmed that their office also has concluded that there is no legal nexus, no legal connection between the two agreements.
Okay. I think that all council members have probably received communication from the neighborhood around that crossing, wondering why the city hasn't made it happen. It's clear from this report that the city has done what we can. This is being held up by SMART. I'll be letting the neighborhood know that they need to talk to SMART about it. There's a SMART board meeting tomorrow, and my understanding is if any city council people want to go to that meeting, that there's no Brown Act issues, as that is a publicly noticed public meeting, and we could all show up if we want to.
That's correct.
Good question. It's at 1:30 tomorrow at SMART's headquarters in Petaluma. Thank you. We'll move on. Any statements of abstention tonight? And mayors and council members' reports. Mr. Sawyer.
Thank you, Mayor. One thing to report, last week, the subcommittee for medical cannabis discussions, we had a special meeting actually, where we received testimony from the community and from the industry and the community, and offered some guidance to our staff. Of course, all of whatever is being discussed at those meetings ultimately will come to this full council for a final decision. But it was a special meeting, and we continue the conversation with not only the community but the industry as well. And everything will come back to this council for a final decision.
Thank you. Any other reports? Mr. Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Actually, I'll pick up right there where Councilmember Sawyer left off at that meeting. There was an interesting question that came up regarding the name of the committee. Since the name of the committee is the Medicinal Cannabis Subcommittee, yet the work that we are doing has deviated back into just talking about cannabis more broadly. I'm just wondering what the procedure would be for renaming the committee, or making sure that we've clarified what exactly we are working on, so that the public, if they look for meeting notifications, understand what that is when they see it listed. Is there a process for changing the name of a committee?
I will work with staff to get an answer to that question.
Okay, great. Also had an opportunity right after our last meeting to go out and help kick off the employee fund drive with Councilmember Schwethelm, Police Chief, and many other staff. Thank you, everybody who was out there. It was a great opportunity to get out before the sun was up, start flipping some pancakes. We were at the Recreation and Parks Scholarship Golf Tournament. This year's tournament, I was told, was one of the biggest that they've ever had. It was a great opportunity, and thank you to Recreation and Parks for putting that one on. I did also want to talk a little bit about the Gang Prevention Awareness Week. I did have an opportunity to get into the ring this weekend and play around for 3 rounds with one of my good friends in school, Sonoma County Office of Education board member Herman G. Hernandez. The Double Punches program that does this has been around for years, working with children and high at-risk youth to try to divert them into something other than gang activity. And the Double Punches program does tutoring with their students when they come in, and then teaches them the discipline and the skills of boxing. Very little of what we did actually was highlighted in the ring for 2 reasons. Once we barely sparred. Most of the work was done exercising on the bags. The other is, by the time we got to the 2nd round, we were too tired for it to look like anything other than dancing, I'm pretty sure. So do want to thank staff for the opportunity to do that and learn more about the program. And just, I know not everybody likes boxing, not everybody likes football, but the more that we can do to provide opportunity for our students that doesn't involve gang activity or hanging out with idle hands, I think is a good thing. So look forward to more of those opportunities in the future. I, along with many of my colleagues, spent 3 days last week at the California League of Cities annual convention. I'll let the mayor talk a little bit more about that, and I'll wrap up talking a little bit about a trip that Councilmember Schwethelm and I had an opportunity to take to Sam Jones Hall to check in on the pilot program and the residents from what was known as Homeless Hill being moved into services. I know our city manager was not able to be here today, but he did send out a citywide update. I noticed that had some of the details of what we have seen from that program. So just wanted to highlight a little bit. 70% of those who lived on the Hill are now in services, many of whom are working their way into housing. They found 120 yards of trash that's been cleaned and weeds that have been abated that were a fire hazard. 3 gallons of needles were cleaned up, and 200 propane bottles were removed from the hill, as well as significant work to prevent future fires and pest eradication as well. Had a chance to talk with one of the members who came off of the hill, a gentleman who had lived up there off and on since 1998, and had a debrief with them about what worked, what didn't work, what we could do better, and just was really a good opportunity for me to be able to talk with somebody who believed that that was the best he was ever going to get in life, was being on the hill, and talking to him about opportunity and what he's looking forward to. He actually thinks he's going to get into the Palms Inn soon. So just wanted to thank staff for the opportunity to go out there and have that learning experience as we continue to do this pilot program and learn from our mistakes on it and move around the city. And with that, I'll pass it along.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Mr. Schwedhelm.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, just want to echo Councilmember Rogers, a couple of his events. I also do want to add, I know Councilmember Sawyer and Mayor Corser are also at our Assessment Centennial meeting. We have that on a regular basis because I think it's important for the community. You know, next year Santa Rosa turns 150. And we're trying to coordinate some events. The junior college, I know we had a professor or one of the dean of student affairs here. They're having their 100th anniversary next year, so they're trying to coordinate events, and that doesn't happen without pre-planning. So there's been a number of groups, or a number of us trying to coordinate it so we're all on the same page. And what's really exciting for me, specifically at this meeting, is how we're going to involve the schools in that to learn about the history of Santa Rosa. So I think it's really moving on greatly, and I appreciate former Mayor Sawyer for getting the ball rolling on this, because I see good things happening next year. Again, really did appreciate participating in the Working Park Benefit Golf Tournament. Again, it's a scholarship program, so the money generated from that tournament goes to pay for scholarships for kids who can't otherwise participate in many programs. I think last year about $20K was raised, so it was great to see so many different community members supporting those efforts. As mentioned earlier today, I did provide some opening comments at our gang prevention seminar. We had a nationally known speaker come to speak to about 200 folks about the importance of resiliency, and not just about from the community members, but also the service providers, because those that are providing services to some of this population have to understand they need to take care of themselves first in order to provide those services out there. So it was very well attended. I heard some very positive feedback. And going back to what Mr. Rogers was talking about at Sam Jones Hall, the part that I really appreciate about it, so this is a housing-focused shelter pilot program that we're started, but when you actually talk to some of the folks and put names to it and hear their stories, we heard about Terry. The guy's like taking over the kitchen there. So again, this is someone who formerly had been up on the hill for about 18, 19 years. And here he is, he's taking ownership of it, and he loves it. And his wife, who had come off the hill in a wheelchair, she's now walking with a cane. And the night and day difference for some of the service providers who had seen her the day she got off the hill to her now being at Sam Jones Hall, it's night and day. Very inspirational. And I do want to do a shout out to Sasha, who works for Catholic Charities. So she is a housing navigator. Now, this is one of the new programs that this council funded to try to get keeping the focus on getting people housed. So she's a housing navigator. In 1 week, a couple weeks ago, she found housing for 13 different individuals. 13 people were found housing by this one phenomenal employee at Catholic Charities. That's unheard of. In the past, it might be great for a couple of months you'd house that many people, but in 1 week, with the focus on housing, she was able to do it. And I think it's important that we get these updates, and I know we get the quarterly updates, from the host program, but hearing these real person stories, for me, it's inspirational. I know it's a small sample size, but it tells us that we're heading in the right direction because it is making a difference. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Schwedhelm. Ms. Combs.
Thank you, Mayor. First, I want to take care of some business I thought I had taken care of before, but apparently need to re-announce that I am appointing Deb Rock to the Board of Community Services. Actually, she recently won the Shark Tank competition for her hot sauce at the Hispanic Chamber, which happened before I appointed her, but I had appointed her before, but now it's official. So we'll see if she doesn't spread hot sauce into the Board of Community Services. I attended the rally for the Renter Week of Action yesterday, where the Hohen Avenue families that had these serious problems with the quality of their housing, their rental housing, talked about, as discussed in the newspaper, the 2-point-something, I think it was $7 million settlement that they have now received because of the poor quality of their rental housing. Unfortunately, now that their housing has been renovated and is in much better condition, of course, they can't afford to live there. So they are still very aware and have a strong interest in moving forward rent control for November of 2018, however that happens. And I'm also interested in our rental inspection program going forward. And I noticed the inspection program does not show up on the calendar even under pending. And I appreciate that with district elections, a lot of things are being delayed, but it would be helpful if the rental inspection program could at least show on the pending list if it's not specifically calendarized. And I had a number of questions from people at that rally about how many inspectors we had now and how our inspection program was going. So I'm just sharing that there's still a strong interest in the community in rent control and in our inspection program. I had the lucky opportunity to attend the CDC meeting on our housing policies for the county because our council meeting was canceled, and they hold their meeting at the same time as our councils. So because so many council members were at the conference out of town, I was lucky enough to get to go to this meeting on their priorities and policies for the coming year. They had a number of questions about Santa Rosa, what kind of funding Santa Rosa got. We get some CDC funding, they get some CDC funding. How do we work together? And so I think that encouraging bridge building with the county CDC so that we coordinate how we're spending our state and federal monies would be helpful. And it clearly is difficult because it's held the same time as a council meeting is held. I attended the MTC ABAG RPC Housing Subcommittee meeting, and during that meeting, actually I chaired that meeting in San Francisco, we discussed the relationship between that subcommittee and the CASA Blue Ribbon Panel Steering Commission. The first CASA steering meeting will be September 27th. I'm appointed to that CASA steering committee and look forward or appreciate any comments from the public as to what obstacles and opportunities they see for improving housing construction in our area, particularly legislative efforts. After I attend those meetings, I'll report back here. The RPC subcommittee meeting also was following the legislature, and we'll be interested to hear at some time a report out after the governor decides what he's signing and what he's not signing on how it will affect us. I want to pause for a moment and mention my husband and I frequently travel on business to the city of Puebla in Mexico, which was very near the earthquake, the 7-point-plus earthquake that they had. And I want to mention that that city and the folks there are particularly in my thoughts and prayers now. And every week, I have been expressing concern about how we show compassion to our existing homeless as the rains come. I am, of course, delighted to hear that folks at Sam Jones who are able to go to Sam Jones are doing very well. We don't now have a winter shelter. Obviously, it's a good idea to have year-round shelters, but with the rains coming, it continues to concern me. It concerns me that what we're doing really isn't housing first. We're doing the squeaky wheel gets the grease. We've had complaints about Homeless Hill, and we've had a lot of complaints about the people under bridges. I'm not convinced those are the most vulnerable people in our community, although I want, of course, people not to live on hills and under bridges. I think our policy is cruel in that we are driving people away without having sufficient numbers of adequate locations. And I completely agree again that we need to get people off the street, but I am hoping that we can get folks either from the street directly into housing or into shelter instead of just driving them out from underprotected and covered areas the way that we're looking at bridges. So I continue to be very concerned about that. I understand next week we have a discussion of our housing policy, but I'm not sure that it will include what we're going to do for the winter coming up. And I just need to keep saying that until we have it's been a number of years and we need a plan for what we're going to do for the winter, often well before winter comes. And thank you very much, Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Combs. Mr. Tibbetts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Last week I had the opportunity to attend the Prisoner of War Missing in Action Recognition Day and present a proclamation from the governor. And it was a really great experience because, it made me think about the missing veterans that we have here in this community, specifically the folks who get unseen on our streets, who went through great sacrifice in their life to end up there for many of them. And so I just wanted to bring that up as a friendly reminder, and I know that our city already does a very good job of doing this. We look for permanent supportive housing projects that support veterans and a number of other initiatives. But as we continue with our policy-making objectives that we think about, how does this impact the veteran community, or more specifically, is it not impacting the veteran community? And so I just want to thank the folks at the AMVETS Post 40 who invited me to attend that ceremony. It was really, really eye-opening, so thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tibbetts. Just a quick public service announcement for people who may be participants in the DACA program, the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, otherwise known as DREAMers. With President Trump's decision to rescind this program, a lot of people are uncertain and have questions. There are a couple of free seminars or informational programs coming up in Santa Rosa where you will be able to talk to immigration lawyers, get your questions answered, understand what your rights are. These will be Saturday, September 23rd at Cook's Middle School, and Thursday, and there's no time on that one, Thursday, September 28th from 6 to 7:30 p.m. at Kiwanis Springs Elementary School, both in Santa Rosa. I have this flyer that I'll leave up here on the dais, and if anybody wants to take a look at it. Secondly, because most people are gone by the end of the meeting, I wanted to say that tonight's meeting will be adjourned in memory of Schuyler Jeffries, who was a city councilman in the 1980s, was mayor of Santa Rosa in 1985 at a particularly interesting time in the city's life. Several of us had the chance to have lunch with Schuyler a couple of weeks ago, just a few days before he died. And he told of his experience being mayor during the time when the biggest issue in the city was a big sewage spill, unplanned release of wastewater into the Laguna de Santa Rosa and the Russian River. He told us about earning the unfortunate nickname of Mayor Sludge during that time, but Schuyler was a dedicated public servant. He volunteered as a member of the Planning Commission, as a member of LAFCO, and for 10 years on the City Council. And we offer our condolences to his wife, Shelley, and their family. We have no minutes to approve tonight. We'll move on to consent items. Ms. Hurtado.
Thank you, Mayor. Item 12.1, resolution, speed limits on Kiwanis Springs Road, Montecito Avenue, Occidental Road, and Summerfield Road. Item 12.2, resolution, adoption of memorandum of understanding, Unit 9 Fire Safety Management, and amendment to fiscal year 2017-18 adopted general fund budget. Item 12.3, resolution, second amendment to professional services agreement for the Metropolitan Planning Group. Item 12.4, resolution authorization to pay unpaid fiscal year 2016-17 asphalt purchase invoices. Item 12.5, resolution, contract extension, Ninth Amendment to the General Services Agreement F000633, alarm monitoring, installation, and repair services. Item 12.6, resolution, waiver of competitive bidding and retroactive general services contract for BMW motorcycle parts, maintenance, and services with DCD Motorsports Incorporated, doing business as Santa Rosa BMW. Item 12.7, resolution, approval of agreement for election services. Item 12.9, resolution, contract extension for vehicle impound services for evidence storage. And item 12.9, ordinance adoption, approve reclassifying 201 Farmers Lane, assessor's parcel number 014-071-093 to the R318-SH zoning district, Farmers Lane Senior Housing, file number PRJ 16-018.
Thank you. Council, are there questions on any of these items on the consent calendar? Ms. Combs.
To be clear, this is just a question. I'm not pulling the item. It would be helpful if someone would explain why the Occidental Road, I think I know the reason, but would someone explain why the Occidental Road speed limits are not enforceable now by radar? Radar enforceable speed limits are needed, and I just wondered if you could clarify for the public why they aren't.
Mike Van Middy, Assistant Engineer,
Thank you.
Transportation and Public Works. It was just a segment that we had never surveyed before in the past.
So you have to have a survey of traffic speeds and do some kind of norming process in order to establish that you can enforce the speed limit.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Mr. Rogers?
Before you run away, a quick question. I just wanted to know when the new speed limit signs, assuming that this gets approved, when would the new speed limit signs be up at those locations?
Usually within a couple days. The work orders are already prepared.
Great, thank you. And then I just had a quick question or a clarification, making sure with 12.4, this is work done prior to the contract that we discussed with the additional stipulations that were placed on. It has no bearing on that work going forward, correct?
Councilman, that's correct. There was work that happened before the contract was adopted, and staff formerly used blanket purchase orders, which we've determined was not the proper vehicle. So these got caught in that gap, and we do want to pay our bills, so.
I have a question on 12.5, the alarm services. This includes monitoring alarms, and I'm wondering what happens, say, when an alarm goes off from City Hall, and where does that go? Who answers it, and what do they do at that point?
Well, depending on who is the owner of that alarm, they get notified. I know more about Recreation and Parks because I've talked to them about some of the issues they had. So they get a phone notification of an alarm going off, and then make a determination of what they're going to do about it. I'm not really certain how all the different managers manage the notifications of their alarms, but that's spelled out in the agreement, how they notify and who.
So the alarm company gets the alarm and they call the police department?
No, they notify certain staff members. Depending on where the alarm is, there may be a notification directly to the police department, or it may be to a staff member, depending on how we ask them to notify the city for that particular site.
I'm just wondering, as a 24-hour operation, if this is the most efficient way to do this.
Sometimes these are sites that don't necessarily require us to go out and look at them immediately. Like in Recreation and Parks, there may be a facility that they determine they don't need to go and look at it. It's not going to be critical So they wouldn't necessarily go out and look at it, and you wouldn't want to burden your police department to go out on a call. They do a lot of false alarm monitoring now. These are, when there's a false alarm on a business, it does get notified. The police department gets notified of those alarms. They check on them. Often there's a false alarm and they bill for that. So in trying to alleviate from false alarms and issues, we've determined based on where the site is, how we would get notified, and the staff that owns that particular facility would then make a determination on how they're going to deal with it.
I understand, and I'm not suggesting that the alarm necessarily go to the police department, but these types of alarm monitoring operations are essentially like a phone answering service, and they pass the call on to someone else. I'm wondering if there's a way to bring that in-house, and I'm not going to pull this item from the consent calendar, but it's just something that I think that we should think about in the future. Thank you. Do we have any cards on any consent items? All right, Mr. Tibbetts.
I move item 12.1 through 12.9 of the consent calendar and waive for the reading of the text.
Your votes, Council. Passes with 6 ayes. Councilmember Oliveris not present. Still a little bit before 5 o'clock, so we'll go past the public comment to 14.1.
Great, thank you, Mayor. Item 14.1 is a report to approve the general services agreement with MV Public Transportation, Vacaville, California, for Pilot Park Smart Service to connect downtown Smart Station and Railroad Square with downtown and city parking garages. We have Rachel Eade here, our acting Deputy Director for Transit.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor Corsi and members of the council. I'm pleased to be here to present this item, which is the culmination of some work and discussion over the past year or so as we prepared to get ready for the start of Smart Service. Some background on this project. I know the council is familiar with this project and has been involved in the discussion for some time. But as you know, there has been concern for some time about the lack of dedicated parking in the Railroad Square area to serve riders wanting to take the SMART train from Santa Rosa. There was also some concerns raised in the citywide progressive parking management strategy study regarding parking capacity in that area following the beginning of Smart Service. And out of some of these discussions emerged the concept and the direction from council to pursue development of a circulator shuttle service that would provide a free shuttle connecting some of the city's parking garages that have excess capacity at this point with the Railroad Square area. This is a project we're working on collaboratively with the parking division. The transit division has managed an RFP process and a panel process to select a consultant for award of this contract, as well as developed a proposal for a shuttle route and schedule, which I'll present in a moment. The parking division has been collaborating with us on development of this project, and the funds for this service will come from the parking fund. So to give a quick overview, and I will go to the map in a minute, but to give a quick overview of this service, this is a service that is dedicated to connect folks parking in the city garages with the train, so it is timed to meet the trains. It will operate Monday through Friday as proposed. We're matching it to the entire train schedule for the whole day. So the first train at 4:30 in the morning will be met by this shuttle all the way till 9:30 at night. We will, of course, be watching ridership and productivity on those trips very closely to see if we want to reprogram some of those hours or pull back some of those hours if they don't ride. But at this point, given council's direction, we're starting off at the very beginning to see what demand is out there for this type of service. I'm going to actually go by the recommendation to give you a look at the proposed route. And I just want to note, you have received a new attachment to a revised map and schedule. There has been some changes to the proposed map or shuttle route and some minor edits to the schedule. So just to review what this shuttle will do, see if I can get my pointer up here. Okay, 1 second. So it will start at Garage 1 up on 7th Street, come down B Street, go across 3rd Street, up Wilson. The shuttle vehicle, which would be a smaller cutaway vehicle, would circulate into the depot parking lot. There's a dedicated stop for it that we've created in collaboration with the parking division. Would return back south on Wilson, back on 3rd Street, would actually circulate through the transit mall and then wend its way through 3rd Street and 4th Street to a stop by Courthouse Square, and then back up to Garage 1. And I should also note there's a stop that will be created by the Santa Rosa Plaza, an existing bus stop. The schedule, as you can see, does meet trains throughout the day. We drop off in the middle of the day to focus a little bit more on the peak commute periods. But as I said earlier, as we look at performance of this shuttle, we do have the ability within this contract to change hours to better meet the demand that we see. We're, of course, starting a brand new service to serve another brand new service. So I think we have a lot to learn about who is going to use the shuttle, how they're going to use it, and what the demand is going to be. And so we'll be ready to evaluate it from day one and look closely at the best use of these resources. So going back to the recommendation, it is recommended by the Finance Department and the Transportation and Public Works Department that the Council, by resolution, award a contract for a pilot smart parking shuttle called ParkSmart to MV Transportation, Inc. for an amount not to exceed $180,000 for 1 year, with 2 one-year options to extend, and 2, to appropriate $151,000 in fiscal year 2017-18 from the parking fund for this shuttle. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Questions? Mr. Rogers.
Just one quick one, if you would. I noticed that the funds are coming from the unassigned fund balance. I just wanted to know what would that leave us with in the unassigned fund balance? And again, for context, while you're settling in, we have our reserves, we have our budget. Unassigned is in neither of them.
Right, so this is within the parking fund, and the unassigned fund balance is really money that we are collecting over time to meet our 10-year asset management plan, our CIP program. So it will just delay some of those projects, but that is what those funds are used for. I don't know exactly how much is left in there, but we do have a 10-year plan of how we roll out capital projects, so it's targeted to have those funds in there for those projects.
If you could just circulate information when you get a chance to look at what that would leave the unfunded or the unassigned fund balance at, I'd really appreciate that.
And we are actually right now doing our audit, so that information will be available at the end of the calendar year. We don't actually have audited numbers. I could give you an estimate, but I don't know if it's going to change, and the auditors actually are just starting their work right now, so we should have better numbers at the end of the calendar year.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Combs.
Thank you. I understand that the shuttle service is complimentary, that it is a free shuttle service.
That's right.
How does someone show that they're going to ride the SMART?
They don't need to show that they're going to ride SMART. I think because of the routing of the shuttle and where it serves, we're primarily looking at a market beginning at the parking garages, but at this point, anyone can get on this vehicle. I would say it's still complementary to the transit system, even though it goes through the transit mall. Most people in the transit mall are probably holding a free transfer, and if they would be hopping on a bus, they would not be paying potentially additional revenue, and they could hop on this vehicle. I'll also say this, that we have such a high level of transit service now between the transit mall and the SMART station that I think most people would still continue to use that service. So I don't see a huge rush to jump onto this vehicle for a free trip necessarily.
Okay, and that might not be a bad thing anyway.
Yeah.
So the becomes almost a downtown shuttle.
Yeah, it can definitely function as a downtown shuttle as well.
So are the regular garage charges applying?
Yes.
Okay, can people stay overnight in the garages?
I'm going to defer that to parking experts.
I'm seeing a yes.
Yes.
Okay, so if you take an overnight trip into the city, you don't have a problem with your car being in the garage overnight. Thank you, just wanted to confirm it.
Ms. Eid, how will this be branded differently? Is it going to be a different color than City Bus?
Yeah, I mean, as the attachment you have, the new attachment 2, as well as this map you see here show this logo, the Park Smart Shuttle logo. That is the proposed branding for this service and the proposed color scheme. So there'll actually be a vehicle branded, provided by the contractor with this logo, so that it will be differentiated from other vehicles that are out there.
And will SMART provide us any space on their platforms or rail cars to market this?
You know, we haven't asked that question, but I have a feeling they would be very happy to assist us with that. We've had a very good working relationship with them in developing this concept as well as other things we're working on, so certainly be happy to follow up on that.
Okay, good. And the last question I have is, this is a one-year contract, and I'm hoping that this will be heavily used, but if it turns out that it's not, this is a one-year contract, and we're committed to that. Is that correct?
We have the option to terminate the contract at any time per our regular agreement. So if we find that this is not, as we evaluate it over time, not a way that we want to go in terms of providing this connection, we can look at other options. So we have flexibility.
And does that flexibility include, if we were to cut back on the schedule, would that reduce the cost?
That's right, yes.
Okay. Thanks. I think this is a great idea, and appreciate your work on it.
Okay, thank
Any other questions, council? Any cards on this item?
Yes, next to your arm.
You got good eyes, Mr. DeWitt. Come on down.
Thank you, sir. I'll speak from here. My name's Dwayne DeWitt. I'm from Roseland, and I always wanted the idea of a Rosa go round, a bus that would reach around like they do in Emeryville. But I believe you need to do a market area survey before you implement this service, rather than just putting the money up front. How about you see if you actually have a need for this? This may be something that's not really begging for a service. I'm especially interested in finding out what that unassigned fund balance is right now that Mr. Rogers asked about. That's really important when you think about it. And for the staff not to be able to give you those numbers right now and say, well, this is how much money we got unassigned, extra in the fund. Well, it's taxpayers' money that could be helping on other things, especially if this is not needed. I myself, I haven't seen that many people riding the SMART train from our area in the mornings when I'm up and about commuting by bike. But I just am really curious about having SMART pick this up. If it's their system, they're the ones that should be putting this up. And they've got more money than you do. So they treat you like a red-haired stepchild also. They don't really play fair with you. So why don't you push back a little bit on them and say, hey, this might be needed, prove it, and pay for it, and then maybe Santa Rosa will help, rather than us being on the hook first. That money could go elsewhere. It could help with the Roseland, the Southwest Greenway that we want to connect to the Southeast Greenway, alternative transportation. That's where that unassigned fund could go. Thank you for your time.
That's all the cards I have. Just for clarification, the unassigned fund balance, this is the unassigned fund balance of the parking district. Is that correct?
Yes, this is the parking fund, not the general fund.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Combs, you have this item.
Delighted to have this item. Thank you. A resolution of the Council of the City of Santa Rosa approving a general services agreement with MV Public Transportation, Inc., Vacaville, California, to provide pilot shuttle services between Smart Station and downtown parking garages, and amending the fiscal year 2017-18 budget in the Finance Department Parking Division, and waive further reading of the text.
Second.
Votes, council. It passes with 6 ayes. We'll go back to item 13, public comment on non-agenda items. Thank you. Mr. DeWitt.
Oh, thank you. I will come down for the overhead, sir.
Be followed by David Paul.
Hello, my name is Dwayne DeWitt. I'm from Roseland. I wanted to thank you for having these community open houses and other public meetings. On Thursday, I was at the Planning Commission meeting where they were talking about the draft environmental impact report for the Southeast Greenway. And as I listened to the meeting, I realized what a wonderful thing it was they were doing, in the sense that they were claiming the community voice should be the one that's heard first. That those people that live next to the Greenway, it's about them and them being satisfied. And I thought, well, that is wonderful. Although it was only 400 people out of a city of 180,000, maybe after annexation up to close to 190,000, that voice is what's going to be important on that Southeast Greenway. And I thought it would be a wonderful thing if that was mentioned at the next open house meeting over in Roseland at the Community Center on Wednesday, October 11th. Because on Saturday the 16th, I was at a meeting with the Recreation and Parks Department over at that same site that became a bit uncomfortable, because it appeared that the institutional memory of the city staff didn't match up with what was occurring in the past and was memorialized in documents about what we call the Southwest Greenway. That would be the Roseland Creek Bikeway and Greenway. 6 acres was purchased 7 years ago to begin to put that through all the way to McMinn Avenue. And that money came from the Agricultural and Open Space District in a matching grant program, $2.5 million. At that time, the highest amount of money ever paid per acre for land out there. It's been passed since, obviously, by the school district, which has more money than God. But hey, the bottom line of it is that this effort that people have worked on for over 20 years for the Roseland Creek Bikeway and Greenway, it may basically be under a cloud now, because we were told by city staff that they weren't going to do it, that they'd found a constraint, and they'd taken it off of the plan that we'd worked so hard on. Plus, they had taken off the Pomo Village, the interpretive village, the southern part that we were calling Pomo Park, because they didn't find a tribe that wanted to pay for it, even though there's plenty of Pomo in Roseland that would like to be recognized. So I want you to come to that meeting, and then hopefully a council member or two would come to the October 14th meeting of Recreation and Parks with the Roseland community. It's really getting important, because folks were a bit contentious out there. Although, as you know, I try to be as polite as I possibly can at all times. Thank you very much for your time.
David Paul, will be followed by Ann Seeley.
Do you need this, sir? All righty, I'm turning it off.
Well, Mayor Corsi and Council, my heart was really gladdened to hear the focus on housing, the fact that we're going to a housing policy discussion next week. Everything you said about taking care of vulnerable people really spoke to my heart. But it also saddened me when I am duty-bound to reveal to you guys today the magnitude of a series of investigations that's going on concerning the development of the house next door to me, 5679 Queen Anne Drive. This may involve the IRS, thank you, state agencies, and the investigative journalists at NBC Bay Area, who are directly now talking to the Department of Developmental Services about how these houses were acquired and modified. They all deal with potential corruption, self-dealing, and private enrichment when the North Bay Regional Center put about $40 million into the pockets of selected firms to come here and buy homes and take them off the market, all with public funds, all 100% public funds, while the deed remains in the pocket of the private firms. The down payment's public money, the mortgage is public money, The fees for asset management are paid for by public money, and the deeds all wind up in the hands of a private corporation. Seems unfair, seems worthy of investigation. And we're talking not about $2.5 million for senior homes, we're talking about $40 million of state and federal money. Now, absent any public policy debate, these firms continue to place what? Upward pressure on the prices of homes while you guys are fighting for affordable housing. It just doesn't seem right. And it's really understandable why these firms haven't come and said, hey, we got this great plan for the city of Santa Rosa, because it's a very, very good deal for them and kind of a bad deal for us. It offends any notion of affordable housing. These homes are purchased for upwards of $1 million, gutted of the nicest insides for another $350,000 to $500,000 and house 4 people. But it also smacks of roughshod, underhanded tactics and ruins the notion of any existing planning for single-family homes or communities, and it creates a substantially untaxed, big deal commercial enterprise run by these firms in this city, untaxed. And it's no wonder the IRS is interested in auditing these transactions. So we have requested before, and we request again, that the City Council direct the Planning Commission to stand down, to hold off, to wait and see what the results of these investigations are, at least to peel back the onion and see where the money is coming from and going to. Or until the investigations are complete, or until perhaps a more equitable balance of community interests and these private firms' interests is obtained, maybe through public policy debate. There can be good public policy debate because we can take care of people with disabilities in renovated homes, and we can do that. And we can also balance and pay high regard to the interests of taxpayers and the community. Ignoring for a minute the quantifiable loss in real property values, and I was at a planning commission where somebody stated 20 to 30%, that placing anybody, any sort of commercial enterprise in your community may do to your property values. I really think it's important that we have a discussion about whether we want to continue to be involved in this. And I think a logical first step may be just to say, let's hold off until the investigations are complete. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Ann Seeley, to be followed by Adrian Shader.
Good afternoon, Mayor Corsi and Council. Ann Seeley speaking for Concerned Citizens for Santa Rosa. I didn't say that very well. I attended the same meeting that Mr. DeWitt attended on Saturday. I went not as a member of the local community, which was what was really intended, but just to observe the process. It was kind of shocking. This area, this park area, has been looked at by local citizens apparently as a potential for respite as a natural space, and yet it is being programmed to cover programs A through Z, including an element, a dog park, which most of the people who attended previous meetings, and there were some very dedicated people there, they had voted against, they urged against this, and yet it was still included. I'm telling you this because I think we have a chance to save some money for the city to provide an equivalence in some sorts in this park to Howarth Park, to Spring Lake Park on the west side, and also to give respect to the desires of the local citizens in that area. Thank you.
Thank you. Adrian Shader, followed by Peter Chernoff.
Hello. I'm here to talk about the City Council's treatment of the homeless population of Santa Rosa. I have here a bottle. This represents a bottle of urine, as one might produce in a day or two of good hydration, being homeless, especially if one needs to go during the nighttime when there are no public bathrooms open or very few and difficult to find. Now, the City Council recently, approved a plan to remake it a misdemeanor, what they call quality of life ordinances, which is really quality of rich people's lives, which makes it easier for cops to harass homeless people for existing, for being, for sleeping, for fulfilling their body's needs and functions when there aren't facilities available for them to do so. We have called this out for what it is, which is criminalization of poverty. And our great mayor, Chris Corsi, has told us that we are being hyperbolic. This is not okay. And in addition to that, many of us are aware of what was done at Homeless Hill, and it is being lauded as a great success. It was not a great success. It was not housing first, because pretty much none of those people got proper housing. Many of them are in shelters, many of them are in services. They did not get housing first. And now they're going to do it again under the 101 underpass, and we keep using phrases like clearing out and cleaning out like these people are pieces of trash. They are human beings. And this is not done voluntarily, this is not offering services, this is not offering housing, this is forcibly removing people, and if they do not cooperate, they are arrested. We know there weren't arrests at Homeless Hill because people knew they had no choice. We know whose council this is. They show us repeatedly, again and again, that they listen to the Santa Rosa Chamber of Commerce, who hates poor people, and cares only about their own business and their money. They do not care about the well-being of the majority of the people of this city, and we are sick of it. And there's only so far you can push us. You may think you can push us as far as you want, because people will put up with so much, and they are. They are putting up with so much. But at a certain point, people will start to push back. And I would hope your consciences catch up with you before then. Thank you.
Peter Chernoff, followed by Alex Dudley.
Seems perhaps that foolishness goes hand in hand with spiritual blindness. So to all you slaves of the Babylonian money magic slave system, if you want to get to heaven, you got to raise a little hell. There be indeed serious cause as to our cracked Liberty Bell. Many hundreds, millions, because of usurious bankers' wars are now dead, just in the last 100 years, all in service to the Fed. The Titanic Federal Reserve conspiracy, whereas 2 German subs, in fact, sunk the Titanic, so all the powerful men and families against the Fed, now drowned dead, in service to the satanic. Students must clarifyingly understand that the usury system be lethal fabrication as destruction's command. And as surely as one student in 1989 China stood up and halted 10 tanks, American students today truly now ready to play by boycotting and shutting down the world usury banks. Truly our time and labors now being traded for paper money, neither silver nor gold, for our efforts be sold. The wealthy usurist forever laughing, our foolishness be hardly funny. So California students painstakingly finally did see in becoming warrior Jedi Knights requires embracing the 40 Freedom Day strike given prophecy. So as the student Jedis embraced the school student strike, soon united by labor till attaining our freedom as we like. What a beautiful action as we all got off the fence, no longer serving 2 masters, maintaining disasters. We ceased paying mortgages, so too all rents. Even the greatest warriors showed kindness from the whale to the mouse. As we shut down the oil industry, so too the murderous slaughterhouse. So Californians led the way by the 40-day strike play, by abiding by love, this almighty command. These almighty Jedi Knights open the doors to the true promised land. I was listening to Julie Combs talk about being cruel, and when they moved people out and there was nowhere else to go, And she said that's cruel. And I like Julie Combs, but in reality, in the spiritual realm, what's more cruel are those that say they want to make a change and their refrigerators are filled with murdered animal flesh, because those are sentient beings, and in the eyes of Almighty, there's no difference of importance between sentient beings and other human beings. And they talked about police brutality over in Sonoma supervisors. You know, the cops are much less brutal to people than people are to the animals. And since it's a spiritual realm, you know, perhaps they should equal out the degree of brutality, and maybe they'd understand. For even the Pope himself, who deceives by omission, his encyclical speaks of kindness to animals and being vegan, but he never speaks of it. And so the students need to arise and understand that from our generation to theirs, we've been taught to disregard the lessons of Gandhi, King, and Chavez, which is to boycott and strike till you attain your goals.
Thank you, Mr. Chernoff. Alex Dudley, followed by Emily Winfield.
Hello, my name is Alex Dudley. I am a member of the North Bay chapter of the Democratic Socialists of America, and I am here to comment on the City Council's treatment of people who are experiencing homelessness. And I'm going to start with some national news. Cities like Detroit, Salt Lake City, Santa Cruz, and San Diego are dealing with outbreaks of hepatitis A, a disease which is spread by fecal contamination. The San Diego outbreak has killed 16 and sickened 421. These hepatitis A outbreaks are directly related to a lack of 24/7 public bathrooms and places where people who are experiencing homelessness can wash or shower, like in Santa Rosa. When the encampment on Homeless Hill was cleared, there were 50 new shelter beds available. Most of those beds are now filled, and there's around about a 200-person waiting list at the shelter. Meanwhile, quality of life ordinances empower police to charge homeless people with a misdemeanor for repeated offenses of public urination. This can result in a $1,000 fine and 6 months in jail. So people who are experiencing homelessness have nowhere to go. They have nowhere to go, and when they do go, they are treated as criminals and trapped in a cycle of escalating fines and misdemeanors. People in Sonoma County who are experiencing homelessness die on average 23 years earlier than the rest of Sonoma County as a whole. We should be treating these people like the human beings that they are and not as an eyesore to be swept away.
Thank you, Emily Winfield, followed by Michael Tatone.
Mr. Corsi, Mayor, and City Council, thank you for listening to me and to all of us. So I'm Emily Winfield. For the past 44 years, I have lived on Brookside Drive. My backyard faces the creek. The creek is onto Doyle Park property. So I am here to talk about the deterioration of Doyle Park. We're hearing lots of emotion going on, and let me tell you, I have an emotional response to Doyle Park. It's been my backyard for 44 years, and I'm also listening to the people who are homeless. So this needs to be a wake-up call for all of us citizens, that action needs to be taken now to put the homeless in safe places, not in public parks. Now, Doyle Park is a community park. It used to be filled with children, with people walking, with lots of activity. The Latino community used to come out and have their big parties on the weekends. The western end of Doyle Park has effectively become a ghost park. I did talk to the Department of Fish and Wildlife, and I told them what is going on in the creeks. Yes, I do believe the bathrooms are closed during the night. Perhaps there's drug activity. This is unacceptable to have people and their dogs, and now cats also, are literally going to the bathroom in the creek. So I was walking there this morning by the creek. There are lots of flies. Obviously, there's lots of feces, whether it's animal or human. Something has got to be done. So this is a wake-up call. I am as compassionate for the homeless as I am for myself and for my neighbors. Okay, here's a question. You're not going to answer it. AT&T put up a cell phone tower 5 years ago. I was told that that leasing money to Doyle Park was going to go to Doyle Park, and then I find out from Nanette that the money has gone into the general fund, which effectively makes the money disappear. So I would like to know, is it public knowledge about how much money AT&T is paying the city of Santa Rosa and where the money has gone? Because when they distributed flyers in my neighborhood, Doyle Park was supposed to be the main recipient of that money, and it's not. It's now in the general fund. So I'd like to see the police enforcement here. It's a difficult issue. It's really a difficult issue, and we as citizens of this city, if we want to maintain a livable city, and I've seen your mission statement online. I've written you a letter. I think Mr. Corsi has passed a letter to you and to the police department. Okay, so that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Michael Tatone, followed by Lisa Landrus.
Hello, my name is Michael Tatone, and I am also here to talk about the need for public restrooms open 24/7 in Santa Rosa. I too am up here with a bottle that represents my pee. It's not real pee, don't worry, it's fake. But the reason I'm standing up here is to advocate for bathrooms that are open 24/7 for public use. You might think that bottles of fake pee don't really belong in City Council. And that's because this is a space where we make laws that regulate people's, their urinary acts, but we don't necessarily have to look at all of the consequences of those laws. And I also have, it comes from, we have a certain privilege being in this room. And I also have a privilege because my bodily functions aren't regulated. But that's not the case if you're homeless. For the homeless, going to the bathroom is a public affair. We regulate their use of the bathroom along with panhandling and sleeping and other things that they absolutely need in order to survive. So I want to make this a public affair and make it visible because I think that we need to know what that is like. But again, I just want to emphasize that we do need public restrooms in order to address this problem. Recently, you decided to support greater criminalization of public urination, raising the maximum charge from an infraction to a misdemeanor, which can result in a $1,000 fine and jail time. And when you don't have access to public restrooms in Santa Rosa that are open 24/7, this does amount to criminalization of homelessness. Santa Rosa has the power to arrest someone for what they do, whether or not they use that discretion. They have the power to do that. And some people, we may have reason to trust the police. Some people in this community don't. Some people in this room don't. So I think we need to be sensitive to that. Homeless people can accumulate fines, jail time, and a greater criminal record as a result, which can damage their chances of succeeding in the future and getting out of their situation. I also agree with Councilwoman Combs that the pilot program is not housing first. It's eviction first and possibly housing second. The main thing that we're doing is clearing out these areas from homeless people, and we're going to do our best to get them housing. But the primary purpose is a homeless encampment cleanup, and that needs to be recognized. I believe that we need a city-sanctioned homeless encampment, and public bathrooms open 24/7 at that encampment would reduce and manage the space that we would need to put public restrooms. Thank you.
Thank you. Lisa Landrus, followed by Brad Childs.
Hello, and thanks for letting everybody say their spiel. I'm local, third generation Sonoma County, grew up on the West County side, very poor, attended Wright Elementary School, Cook Junior High, two of the poorest schools in the whole neighborhood. My family had its way into the rental market When HUD had some good programs and they would let us take defunct properties, fix them up, we would in turn turn them over to Voucher 8, or Voucher Section 8 holders. We had about 80 units. We were the workforce. We gave up all the other things that we saw other children doing. I mowed 35 lawns a week to make all these properties happen. I roofed houses, I did termite work, I did all of those things. And I think there needs to be more of a commitment from City Council, from the community, in terms of partnerships of things. When I see things that come about, and it's more a distant sort of thing. There's never like, I'm going to do this for you, so you will be promoted to do this. I never see that kind of cooperation happening. I've been to countless meetings. I've been to all kinds of things. And I'm going to wrap my part up with Doyle Park. Here's a beautiful little piece of land with great bird watching, all kinds of things. While I have compassion for homeless people, I don't have compassion for people who can regulate their behavior. I'm not speaking to the mentally ill, those that have psychosis through drug use, any of that. The rest of them, I find that there is a lot of leeway with this narrow group of people who think that now that they're lumped in with vets with PTSD, mental illness and stuff, that they get to just act however they would like to act, that it's fine. I have friends with businesses downtown who have to scrape excrement off their doors every morning, and you can't tell me that that person doesn't know what they're doing. So while I want to be held accountable as a community for providing housing, I want that section that knows what they're doing motivated and held accountable. Even my pet will go off the trail. I've been backpacking in extreme situations for a month at a time. I mean, there's all kinds of ways to be a discreet person. You don't have to shove it in your neighbor's face like you're more important than they are. And that's it.
Thank you. Brad Childs.
Good evening, Mayor, Council members. I'm here tonight to speak to you about Doyle Park. We moved here 17 years ago, and it was a very pleasant place to go. There were a couple of homeless people in the park at the time who we knew by name. There were a few people who actually picked up after other people. But lately, since the, I should say, the eviction of Homeless Hill, and then also the request for the homeless to relocate from Ray Park to Doyle Park, has increased the population more than tenfold. I am lucky I don't live on the periphery of the park, but I live near it, and I just go there to walk my dog in the morning, and I'm only there usually about an hour. But what I have recently witnessed has been unbelievable. With the signs are posted for no camping overnight. There are people who are sleeping on those nice concrete benches now, and underneath them, well, that can be swept up, but they're sleeping on top of the benches. They're sleeping on the children's play structures, and of course, they're using the creek as a bathroom, as you know, as people have said. And I'm all for opening up the bathrooms 24/7. People do need somewhere to go. And we all know what's in our mind when we have to go, when we're in our car, in traffic, or wherever we are. We just hope that we're going to find a facility close by. I've been there at 7 o'clock every morning, watching the park staff clean out the restrooms. It's not a pretty sight. I feel for them. I also feel for them when they're taking all of the garbage that's left and food by people and having to handle it. I wouldn't want to have to do that. Excuse me. The people are littering the parks, and it's not just food, it's spare bicycle parts. You won't find any soda cans or bottles, though. And I personally bring bags of soda cans and bottles to the park to give to the homeless so they can convert that to some money and put it in their pocket. Some of the dog walkers, some of us are the first ones at the park. We observe what's going on. I've called your maintenance department for flooding, for water malfunctions, for doors left open, for locks that look like they've been picked. excuse me, I recently found out that some of the shoes that I'm finding around the park are the result of people removing their shoes so they can inject drugs between their toes. I didn't know that. Dogs have found chicken bones on the grass, and dog food has been dumped in piles. So people, when they walk their dog in the off-leash hours, which we're grateful to have from 6 a.m. to 8 a.m., the dogs go there and start eating the food naturally. Is my time up?
You need to wrap up, Mr. Childs.
Okay, yes. Thank you very much. I hope something can be done, maybe more policing, opening the bathrooms 24/7. But I'm willing to join anyone who wants to try to work on a solution for this.
Thank
and
you,
I appreciate
Mr.
your
Childs.
time. Thank you.
We've reached the limit of our speaking time. For this public comment session, additional public comment will be taken at the end of the meeting on non-agenda matters. We'll move to 14.1. I'm sorry, 14.2.
Report item, Santa Rosa Junior College pilot program to provide an unlimited access pass to students for the fall 2017 semester. And Rachel is here, Rachel Eve, to present.
Thank you. Mayor Corsi and members of council, I'm pleased to be back with this item, which we're very excited about. This is an item that would authorize the city to enter into an agreement with the Santa Rosa Junior College for the remainder of the fall semester this year to provide unlimited access to City Bus for Santa Rosa Junior College students. So as you know, currently Santa Rosa Junior College students over the age of 18, which is most of them, pay full fare for City Bus. Our youth fare goes up to 18. Beyond that, you're in the adult fare category, which is a big increase for folks. Last spring, the Santa Rosa Junior College students passed a student transportation fee that will pay for ridership programs on Sonoma County Transit operators, including Sonoma County Transit, Petaluma Transit, and Santa Rosa City Bus. So what we're proposing here today is a pilot program where City Bus will allow all SRJC students to board City Bus an unlimited number of times at no cost to the student. This would be in effect as part of this pilot for the rest of the fall semester, as I mentioned. In return, the Santa Rosa Junior College would take a portion of those student transportation fees received for this semester and provide that to the city of Santa Rosa, and that would be in the amount of $50,000. I do want to note that this, while it would cover most of what we estimate the ridership for JC students to be for the fall, there would likely be a gap. And so we're estimating, based on our ridership estimates, that we would absorb between $10,000 to $25,000 in lost fare revenue within the Transit Division operating budget as part of our participation in this program. I do want to acknowledge the Santa Rosa Junior College's tremendous partnership in the last month as we've worked out some of the details of this program to bring for your consideration. They have wanted their students who ride City Bus to be able to access free transit, and they purchased about $7,500 worth of City Bus fare products to distribute to their students through their Student Affairs Office, and we certainly appreciate that contribution as we've prepared this item to bring to you. As noted, this is a pilot program, so what we would do is we would do an evaluation over the course of the semester. The junior college is going to be looking at what their receipts are from the student transportation fee, which is new to them. We'll be looking at our ridership, which we'll be tracking on board the buses using a special key for Santa Rosa Junior College students. And then we'll be able to come back to council a little bit later in the fall to report out on our experience and then hopefully talk about moving this program into the spring semester and hopefully establishing an ongoing program. So we've listed a number of benefits here. I think these are familiar to all of us. There's obviously environmental benefits to promoting students who are using single occupant modes to get to school, to transfer over to the bus and take advantage of some of our new excellent service we've created to the Santa Rosa Junior College area on the City Bus system. It certainly helps the college meet its goals in terms of providing educational access across the economic spectrum, reduces parking demand, helps recruit and retain students, many other benefits. Also, we anticipate this will increase ridership on City Bus. We've watched Sonoma County Transit's experience with their free student fare program, and it certainly has done that in their system. I think it's also, I'd add to that, this type of program is the kind of program that does position a transit system in more of a central role within a community in terms of the benefit it can provide. So with that is our recommendation. It's recommended by the Transportation and Public Works Department that the council, by resolution, authorize a pilot program where City Bus allows all Santa Rosa Junior College students to board City Bus an unlimited number of times for the remainder of the fall 2017 semester for a fee of at least $50,000 provided by the recently passed student transportation fee. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Council, other questions? Mr. Rogers.
Thank you. I'm really excited to see this item come forward, and I just have a quick kind of technical question about it. My understanding is that the amount of money that we get from the federal government related to these is directly tied to our ridership. So if we move in a direction of having free rides, does that mean that theoretically we should be getting more from the federal government to offset that difference between the 50,000 and the increased ridership? Or do they look at that as sort of cheating and adjust accordingly?
No, it's not considered cheating. And you're right, there is a connection. The federal formula that dictates the amount of revenue we receive from the main program that we're funded by from the federal government does take into consideration transit ridership and passenger miles traveled. I'm not going to say it's a direct offset. I think we get a bump from it, and I don't have that factor for you, and it is I will say it's a very complex formula. It would be a bit of an exercise to figure out the exact relationship, but it certainly is a benefit not just for federal funds. We have other funds that we have access to in the region, for example, that are distributed by a formula that includes ridership. So it's always a benefit to us in the funding realm to have increased ridership. Will it offset the full $10,000 to $25,000 that we might be absorbing? I can't promise it will meet that, but it certainly helps us provide for a more sustainable transit system moving forward.
Mr. Schwedman.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for this, Rachel. This is exciting, trying to figure out a way to do this. I just have a couple questions if this comes forward. So in the staff report, there's a sentence here about the determinate success, that based on the revenue and ridership for all participating transit operators, JC and City Bus will analyze this pilot program and determine its success. How are you going to be determining its success, and what does that mean to us for the continuation? What will you be looking at to determine success?
So we'll be looking at the ridership. We'll be looking at the ridership against our estimates. Did the ridership come in higher? Did it come in lower? What were the receipts that came in from the student transportation fee? How well those receipts matched what our lost revenue was. So, part of the sustainability of the program is, we don't want to go forward in a situation where we're continually absorbing lost fare revenue into our operating budget. I don't think we anticipate that will occur over the long term, but we want to see that we're able to support financially this program going forward. I think the qualitative benefits are very clear. I think as the program moves forward, we can do some surveys of students and really understand more of those types of benefits. But I think for the purpose of this item, it's really to look at how do we keep this program going with the revenue coming in and the ridership we're seeing.
So could you also comment on, because I know when we had some discussions with the shortfall of our transit operations, when we talked about ridership and how the county did have a bump when they provided free ridership, and there was some thought that, well, you just took some riders, existing transit riders from our system and moved them over to the county. How would you equate that? Because I'd be interested is how do we encourage new riders who currently aren't riding to take advantage of this? How would you quantify that versus just shuffling around existing riders?
Right. Well, that's a difficult thing to quantify, and I'll say, part of the reason is, we did see with the commencement of the county's free student rides program, a distinct reduction in our ridership at the stops right in the JC area. And as you know, the 4448 provides a very similar service on that corridor that those students could take advantage of. We don't necessarily have stop-level data from the ridership from stop-level ridership from Sonoma County Transit to then understand how that might shift back in our direction. And I think overall, we don't necessarily want to get into that much analysis about whose bus folks are on. I think overall, your point is well taken, that the goal is to have more people get on the bus, whether it's a white bus or a blue bus, right? So I think we know based on our analysis, what we expect we'll see in terms of ridership. And I think it's not a perfect analysis. We're working with imperfect data. But I think we'll be able to then see if we have a distinct increase in those boardings and alightings at those bus stops right by the JC, and if we're exceeding our estimates. Not sure if this is 100% answering your question, but I think we do have a way to get at that analysis, though it might not be 100% perfect based on the data.
I guess my interest would be, as long as we're communicating with county transit, and we all have, I think, have that interest in getting more ridership, increasing it for all, not we win, you lose type of situation.
Absolutely, and I'd like to add that I think that the benefit of this program is that there has been a lot of confusion. Which bus is free? Can I get on your bus for free, or do I have to be on the other bus? I think that this is greater than the sum of its parts when you're able to say to the student body of the junior college, get on any bus in Sonoma County and show your ID. You don't have to worry about which bus it is. I think that encourages ridership in a way more than just one or another agency having that type of program.
And what, if anything, will we be doing or working with the JC to market this program? Again, I think that key target audience are those that are not taking transit right now.
Absolutely. Yeah, so we've already had meetings with the Santa Rosa Junior College administration and their marketing folks. Our marketing person, Julia Gonzalez, who you know already has a whole program ready to roll out, and it involves everything from print to a lot of social media to working with the junior college to have a coordinated effort to get this information out. And I will comment that the word is already out at the junior college that this was coming forward for your consideration, because we're hearing from our operators and our street supervision staff that they're getting daily questions. When is this going to Santa Rosa? When can we ride city bus for free? So we know that the word has already gotten out about this possibility.
Great. Thank you. I'm really, I'll be real encouraged to hear some early results, because I think this is a great program, and let's model this from, throughout the entire county. So thanks.
Ms. Combs.
Thank you. This is really wonderful and exciting. I'm thrilled that we're partnering with the junior college, and I thank you very much for bringing it. When is the effective date, if by chance it passes?
That would be tomorrow.
Okay, so free buses, if it passes tomorrow.
Yes,
That's
I will
fabulous.
Go send an email after we're done, should you all approve it, and we'll be good to go.
So it doesn't need a second reading or something, it's tomorrow. Just making sure. Yeah, okay, great. The other question I have is, so I love this. Is there any outreach now going on with the city schools with regard to school students also?
We are not actively doing that right now, but I will tell you it's something that I've discussed with Jason a couple of times in the last few weeks about how we could move in that direction. So I don't have anything to report at this time, but it's definitely on the radar.
I'm glad to hear it's on the radar. Thank you very much for this.
Mr. Tibbetts?
Thank you. First of all, congratulations. This is very cool. And thank you to the students and Professor Ethington for making this happen. It's really exciting, because it's also a Tier 2 priority, if I'm not mistaken, for the City Council. But I want to follow up on what Ms. Combs kind of alluded to, and when we look at those tier priorities for transit, we talked about fare-free city buses for students K through 12 and junior college. We've got the junior college piece. That's great. And then we also talked about doing it for veterans. In this process, did you, I was reading your staff report, did you, when you were identifying ridership, did you kind of try to identify how many veterans there were and what cost implications for looping veterans into this pilot program as well? Because I think that would be important, especially considering since the county also offers that service. And so when we think of contiguity of service, it might be important to really meet that need and fill that gap.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I don't currently have an estimate for veteran ridership in the city bus system and how that could be incorporated into a free fare program. We don't have any data sets where we've asked people in the past to identify themselves by their veteran status. What I think we could do is look at the county's veteran ridership as a proportion of their total ridership. Our populations are similar in our service areas, I'm sure, and so we could probably get an idea based on that. I don't have that for you tonight in terms of an estimate, but I think that's something we can definitely look at. I'm aware that there are some programs out there through various veterans agencies and programs that might be able to help us support that type of program going forward, so we can take a closer look at that as well.
Thanks. So when you generated your ridership for SRJC students, how'd you take your sample? Was it a week, a month, asking people to self-identify, show a student card?
You know, what we did is we have some data to work with, and we used the best available data. We came at it actually a couple different directions, but the primary analysis was to look at data provided by the JC's Institutional Research Office in terms of the number of Santa Rosa Junior College residents who live in Santa Rosa, what proportion from their own surveys of students use the bus to get to the campus here in Santa Rosa. We estimated a number of trips per week that we thought someone would make on average if they had access to free transit. And that's what we used to generate our sort of anticipated ridership just from the JC. We also have from our ongoing onboard survey the ability to do a cross-tabulation where we can figure out the proportion of our riders who identify as students and are over 19. And we know not all of those are JC students, but a lot of them are here in Santa Rosa. So we sort of looked at it from that angle too and came to a very similar number in terms of what we thought the ridership could be.
Okay, so over a period of time, I'm thinking if we want to go out and look at what would a veteran pilot look like, how much time would it take to gather that data, do you think?
That's a good question. I don't think it would be, based on the available, there's not a lot of data out there, so it's not going to be a very lengthy analysis because we're going to have to work with what we have, and I think some consultation with Sonoma County Transit about their experience would probably be our best way of understanding the usage of a free transit for veterans program.
So in anticipation of this meeting, I reached out to Michelle Whitman and Supervisor Zane at the county and worked with their transit coordinator and got some data, and I'll share it with you.
Great.
2,694 vets ride the county system countywide on average every month. Total program cost is about $22,000 a year to $28,000 a year, and they're also able to tie in a federal grant for $10,000 to support the pilot program. And I'm trying to find the name. I think it was the Veterans Transportation and Community Living Initiative, which was funded from the U.S. Department of Transportation, Veterans Transportation Services. So I just wanted to relay that to you in hopes that we can put it to use sometime.
Thank you.
Thank you for bringing this forward. I concur with my colleagues that this is exciting. The second free bus we've talked about in one meeting. I'm assuming, though, that we're talking about free bus rides for junior college students and not for veterans and not for other students, because the JC has a dedicated funding source now. Do you know whether that funding source, the fee that students are paying, has a limited term to it, or is it in perpetuity? What's the status there?
My understanding is that if it is a limited term, it's not very limited. I mean, we can count on this being available going forward. I think the big question is how much is it going to yield in terms of funding, but it is something that they've adopted to continue to pay in through their fees each semester. So I think we can count on it as a sustainable source of funding to build a longer-term program. Okay.
And with the college or any other entity subsidizing free fares, does that money, does that $50,000 count as fare box revenue?
Yes, for our fare box recovery calculation?
Yeah.
Yes, it does.
Okay. You're estimating a deficit of $10,000 to $25,000. I understand this is a pilot program. We're going to figure out what the benefits and otherwise come from this. But I'm concerned about the deficit that you're operating under right now. Where does this $10,000 to $25,000 come from? Is it additional general fund money or something else?
Well, the loan that the council approved to help sustain City Bus through our addressing our structural deficit requires that we exhaust our reserves first. So if we finish this fiscal year and we haven't found another way to pay for this lost fare revenue or be reimbursed for this lost fare revenue, then it would likely come out of our reserves. I do want to mention, we just this week identified that we might have access to some grant funds remaining for a specific funding source from 16-17 that we may be able to apply towards this program. We'll be following up on that, but if so, that would give us a way to make ourselves whole during this pilot project. And that looks fairly likely, but it's not something that I can definitively say we're able to do tonight. So we've proposed that the worst case scenario, we are looking at a $10,000 to $25,000 absorption within likely our reserves in this year. I'm in charge of helping to figure out this deficit problem, so I definitely feel that impact, but at the same time, I would also say that this is the type of program that we need for City Bus's long-term sustainability, in my opinion. We'll continue to refine the subsidy level as we move forward based on the revenues available, and maybe look at other options for bringing additional revenues in. But these types of programs really change the role of a transit system within a community, and that's something that can really help us get on solid footing and stay there.
Thank you, and I do appreciate that programs like this also increase the chances for grants, as you pointed out, and as Vice Mayor Tibbetts pointed out as well.
Yes.
So great, riding the bus for free tomorrow with your junior college ID after we vote. A couple of cards here. Dwayne DeWitt, followed by Robert Ethington. Is Dwayne still here? Robert Ethington, come on down. He'll be followed by Robert Martinez.
Good afternoon, Mayor Corsi, council members. It's good to be here. It's my first time speaking under public comment, so I had to get close. No back of the room here. I'm here on behalf of the college today. I'm the Dean of Students at SRJC, and I'm representing the board, the president, and the students of SRJC. This is an exciting program. We've been working on it for over 5 years. We've got the county involved. They've been tracking data for 3 years, so we have a real good idea of how many students are using it and how much money they're spending on that. We just got Petaluma City on board. They started the first of the semester, and hopefully after tonight we'll have all of you on board. I know that there's a deficit that we're talking about here, and there's a pie of money that's going to come in from students. We hope $250,000 to $300,000 a year. And I've already sat down with all the major providers and talked about this pie and that we need to spend it all. The money can only be used for major carriers. So the two cities, county, and we've started negotiations with SMART to see if we can help students with that. So I talked to her today. It's a little bit different with SMART, a little bit different than the governance organizations of the cities and county. But I'm hopeful we'll have something. So in October, we're all going to get together again. We're going to look at the numbers. We're going to look at the baseline data. We're going to meet with the marketing folks again also. And we're going to say, hey, here's how much money I know we make now in a semester. And because we'll know our real numbers in about 2 weeks. And I'm going to split it. Got to spend it all. Let's see if we can come up with a way where everybody gets their fair share. Will there be some subsidization on behalf of the cities and county? I don't know. We're trying to avoid that. You get every penny that I have that the students are putting into this fee. Robert Martinez is going to come up in a second representing the students and talk about what they did to get the money. But I'm just asking for your support to at least let us try this pilot, see what happens, get some baseline numbers, come back and meet with your folks. Rachel and Yuri and Jason Nutt have been awesome working on this program. You have great people. I really appreciate that. And let's see what we can do. It's an access issue first. It's an environmental issue second to me. If we can get students to college, they're more likely to have a better life here in Sonoma County. And transportation is the #1 reason, they say, that it prohibits them from getting to classes and that they drop out. So this is exciting. Thanks for taking a look at it. Thank you.
Thank you. Robert Martinez. He'll be followed by Jerry Lalonde.
Good afternoon, Mayor Corey and members of the council. My name is Robert Martinez. I'm the Vice President of Committees at the Student Government Assembly at Santa Rosa Junior College. Last year, I was a part of the talks about approving this and sending this to students to vote. And we talked about everything. We talked about it for weeks, if not months. And it came down to, again, access environmental. There are a lot of students who need help in whatever way they need help. For me, if there weren't free books at my school, I wouldn't be able to go to the JC. For other people, if there isn't free transit, if there isn't free ways to get to school, they're not going to school. And they won't be able to improve their lives with education. And on behalf of the students of the Santa Rosa Junior College, I urge you, I ask you respectfully, and I beg you, please, please approve this. This will help students. This is very easy to look at. You're helping those who are in grave need. These people want to improve their lives with education. Help them. Thank you.
Thank you. Jerry LeVonberg, followed by Gregory Furon.
As always, I'm honored and privileged to participate in this part of democracy. I want to sincerely thank the City of Santa Rosa. I want to thank the staff, the city bus staff, the bus drivers, all of you for helping us get to this day, this little step that we're taking. A couple of things I want to cover is in terms of both the future and where we're actually going over the next 20 years. The low carbon plan that the Sonoma County Transportation Authority is doing along with the Regional Climate Transit, they have a four-step thing that they're doing. And Mayor Corsi, I would respectfully ask that you add another 20%. I would like to see a comprehensive study by Sonoma County Transit Agency to determine what it would cost to have fareless transit for all of the buses, and then work backwards from that. Show me for the students, show me for the veterans. We need that kind of study to get to the point where we are today. We need the kind of dedication and enthusiasm that the junior college in particular has put into this. It's like really wonderful to hear the vice president there talk about the conversation that they had to have in order to get to this. That's our real goal, is really getting people to have this conversation and understand that their tax dollars are extremely well spent. We have a whole bunch of good things happening in transit right now. The money that's going to come down, we want to keep this aspect of transit and free student transit in place, looking to all of the students. I'm very, very happy and appreciative today on behalf of the North Bay Organizing Project and Transit Riders United, and to each of you, because this is a good thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Gregory.
As a certified carded veteran who uses the county bus system, thank you, Jack. I'd love to ride the city buses too. But this is really a deja vu for me, because 40 years ago, as a college and Marin student body president, Peter Baer authored a bill that I asked him to author, which authorized through the education code the parking fees on community college campuses to be used to subsidize public transit for students. It's still the law. And there are community colleges in this state that are funding the public transit of their students from parking fees. Now, why? We argued then, and I argue now, that it's a benefit to everyone in the community to have people on buses for lots of different reasons. But in particular, we argued that the lots had spaces because students took bus rides. Everyone who took a bus provided a space for that guy who was paying to park. So it's only useful and productive and right that some of the money that goes into the college to, rather than build large parking lots, to subsidize public transit. The state legislature bought it, community colleges bought it, it's been going on. I've been really disappointed that I got here too late to help reduce the parking garages at Santa Rosa Junior College by encouraging the junior college to do what others do. Use that source of money. I'm disappointed that students have to pay for this out of their own pocket in general, because I think it's the parkers, the people who bring cars, who are obligated to pay a little into this. Now, I have no qualms you're spending my general fund money to help these students get on buses. I benefit. There's less cars on the street, there's less gas in the air, there's lots of things that I would use to argue that it's okay to pay that deficit out of general fund. Surely we all benefit as a city now and in the future because students are on those buses. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the council? Have one more card. Courtney Cox.
Hello, I just wanted to agree that you should vote yes, and also that, yeah, I'm a student at the JC. I have been for about 2-3 semesters now, and they definitely oversell the parking passes there. There's $60 each parking pass for every semester, so sometimes it's like, books, parking pass. So I definitely appreciate that this is happening, and I will be one of those new riders. Boop, boop. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, council. Any other questions?
Excuse me. Hi.
Hey.
I'm sorry, I didn't put in a card. I thought I had put in.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Thank you. I need to use the overhead. A little grab. Comic relief. It's not really comic, but it used to be considered comic. But I'm going to do this just right. This one? Oh, sorry. Okay.
Make sure that arm is locked so it doesn't come down.
It's locked.
Okay. All right.
Just
You have it upside down.
Sorry, can you see that? Well, it was a quick graphic. I think it was Chris Rogers' point about subsidized or Julie's. The fare box return is somewhere about 25 to 30% generally. I think it was reported 25% here in Santa Rosa or Sonoma County. That's what the number that I had before. So the lost revenue is the fare box part, and the subsidy part is this part. So if you can increase the ridership even 1/3, if you increase the ridership or you get back from Sonoma County Transit, 1/3 of the people that you're making free, then you're going to get that subsidy that'll cover that from the different subsidy sources. So the question is, was that analyzed in the ridership? Can't really see that very well because of the height or whatever. Was that the difference in ridership, the increased ridership, accounting for the subsidy that you'll get in terms of the deficit after the offset from the junior college? So you're going to get that $50,000 to maybe $100,000 offset. But was that increment added back to see what the subsidy would produce in the way of that? That's a question. Also, there's the parking unallocated balances from the parking facilities fund, which, to Gregory's point, not the junior college parking fees, but the fees and unallocated balances from the cities that could also subsidize the additional, those lost deficits. So it wouldn't have to come from your actual general fund and end up as a deficit there because you already have the unallocated balances in the parking. And really it is the parking that should fund the transit because it's offset. The more the funds that you have available from parking that could transfer to the buses, and they reduce the need, the actual cost. There's a cost to the parking lots and so on. Yes, they're subsidized by the cost that people pay, but the cost is also in the overall cost of housing, the overall cost, and the dislocation of people by parking lots. Parking lots, roads themselves that people drive on, cause us to live further and further apart, cause us to be further away. And that is an environmental cost, as Gregory says. That's a road cost. There's all those costs that you mitigate when you have people on transit. So it's very important not just to look at some of the numbers, but really that's the lawsuit that was involved. Richard and I forget, regarding the county and the regional climate agency that could not account for different travel. They had to account for further travel. That's kind of similar right here, is you have to account for further travel and other types of
You got to
subsidies.
wrap it up. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Council, further questions? Mr. Tibbetts.
So I do. I wanted to follow up a little bit more on the idea, the concept of incorporating veterans into this pilot program. As I mentioned, the County of Sonoma, through the work of the Veterans Service Office, was able to identify that the total cost of the program ranges between $20,000 a year and $28,000 a year based on ridership. And what we're talking about doing here tonight is about a 4-month program, pilot program, running to mid-January. And so when I extrapolate from that data, we're talking about $9,000 to incorporate veterans into this pilot, which would really give us a robust look at the data through actual experience. Sue, did you have something you wanted to say?
If I may, Mr. Mayor, I did want to note that a free ridership program for veterans is not on the agenda for tonight, so we are limited to considering the pilot program for students tonight.
Okay, thank you.
I do think, though, that staff heard what you had to say, and we heard what staff had to say also.
And if I could just add on that, I won't talk about changing anything else, but if I think some veteran service organizations are going to be reaching out to you, and if you could work with them to try to identify this little amount of funding, which could probably be grant funded, and bring it back to the council at some point, it would be so appreciated. And I do appreciate the work that Jason's done, your department, and definitely Mr. Martinez and the students. This is awesome. You guys made it happen.
Thank you. I believe Mr. Rogers has this item.
Yeah, and I want to also thank Mr. Martinez and Mr. Effington. I had the benefit when I was down in Santa Barbara to have access to free bus passes as a student as well. And by the time I got there, the work that people had done before had completely changed the culture of the campus so that it wasn't even necessarily a luxury to be able to ride the bus. It was the expectation. And I'm hoping that we can create that here. I do agree that we need to move and find a way to get to free bus passes, not just for our students K through the junior college, but also our veterans. So I'm hopeful that staff will bring back when this pilot project is not concluded, but as we get more data, what that would look like and be included going forward as we talk about additional funding potentially next year in the budget. So with that, I will move the resolution of the Council of the City of Santa Rosa approving a memorandum of understanding for a pilot program with the Sonoma County Junior College District and SCJCD associated students to provide an unlimited access pass to Santa Rosa Junior College students for the fall 2017 semester.
Second.
With that, I'll waive further reading.
Your votes, Council. That passes with 6 ayes. Thanks very much. 14.3, Ms. Hurtado.
14.3, sorry. Report Blue Fox Partners Parking Agreement, and we have Kim Nadeau, our parking manager, and Raisa de la Rosa, our economic development manager.
Good afternoon. Sorry. Good afternoon, Mayor and council members. This item is seeking approval for a parking agreement with Blue Fox Partners to provide 90 minutes of free parking to the Roxy Stadium movie theater patrons at Garage 12, which is located at 555 First Street, which is directly behind the Roxy Theater and adjacent to the Transit Mall. Thank you. So by way of a little bit of background, in 1999, the City Council approved a parking agreement with Blue Fox Partners, which provided 3 hours of validated free parking for patrons, and Blue Fox pays a portion of the operational costs of the garage. That agreement terminates on February 29th, 2020. In 2002, that agreement was amended to provide free parking for all patrons after 7 p.m. on weekdays and all day on weekends. Blue Fox Partners is planning to remodel its theater, including upgraded screening rooms, luxury seating, and other capital improvements, with a total investment of about $3.5 million, and asked the city to extend the term of the parking agreement. Thank you. Economic Development and Finance staff have negotiated with Blue Fox Partners on new terms and conditions of a proposed restated parking agreement, which includes the following terms. The agreement is contingent upon Blue Fox commencing construction of the remodeling project. The agreement will terminate on February 29th, 2020 if work has not begun by that date. If construction has begun before that date, the new agreement will terminate in 15 years from the effective date. That would be the date of execution of the new agreement. Until construction begins, theater patrons will continue to receive 3 hours of parking with validation from the theater, and Blue Fox will continue to pay a portion of the operational costs at the garage. The cap on permit sales at the garage will increase to 550 in the first year, and then will be increased by 50 permits per year to a maximum of 750 permits. The city will operate the garage as it operates its other garages without free parking in the evenings or on weekends. And upon start of construction, theater patrons will receive 90 minutes of free parking with theater validation, and Blue Fox will reimburse the city for equipment, software, and configuration costs that might be related to enabling validation at the theater. It's estimated that this new agreement will generate about $200,000 annually from theater patrons that park beyond the 90 minutes of validation. And in addition, we expect about $250,000 of revenue from patrons who currently are able to park for free in the evenings and on weekends, and will be able to recoup that lost revenue. Garage 12 has 727 spaces. We have 264 permits sold there currently, and we have 55 spaces committed to a valet agreement for the proposed Empire Hotel agreement. It's an underutilized garage. It averages around 35% occupancy, and we project the garage has the capacity to meet the existing and future demands for parking in the vicinity, including meeting the needs of the theater with its remodeled upgrades. So I'm going to turn it over to Raisa now, the Economic Development Manager. She'll speak to the economic benefit of this.
So I just want to go back and just state that the city was approached by Blue Fox Partners to enter into this parking agreement as a result of their desire to invest about $3 million in upgrades to the theater. So the Blue Fox felt that given their regional competition, that parking is a critical component to ensuring that their investment in the theater or reinvestment in the theater remains viable. So as Kim stated, some of the upgrades include reclining seats in every theater, swivel tables at the seats, reserved seating. So again, modernizing the theater to those you see in most of the big cities around us in the Bay Area and elsewhere. Also extended food options, which I believe will eventually include beer and wine, as well as renovation of the lobby and public areas, and one of the screens will be that large format wall-to-wall, floor-to-ceiling surround sound theaters. So when entering into the negotiations with the partners, we not only considered the existing agreement that they had, but also the general value of having a theater in the downtown area. With that, we also acknowledge the fact that theater attendance is flat at best and declining, and recognize that they do need to make these changes, and once those changes are made, it stabilizes the theater's performance in general, we're seeing around the nation. As it relates specifically to parking, it's anticipated that the reserve seating will also streamline and even out the parking flow and parking demand. And this should be seen primarily in the evening hours when theater parking is at its highest, which really truly complements the daily daytime business uses of the theater. We also do view the theater as a unique asset to the downtown. It behooves us to have multifaceted entertainment options in the downtown. Plenty of social activities, and then we also see it obviously as there are synergies between the theater and the restaurants and bars in the downtown area. So again, it complements our evening and nighttime economy. So with that, it is recommended by the Finance Department and the Planning and Economic Development Department that the Council, by resolution, approve a parking agreement with Blue Fox Partners to approve 90 minutes of free parking at Garage 12 to Roxy Stadium Movie Theater patrons. And we're here to answer questions.
Questions? Ms. Combs?
Is there a 1% for public art component in this in any way? I just don't know, that's why I'm asking.
I would have to check on that, because I'm not sure if this
If
meets
you'd just let me know at some point, I would appreciate it.
I will do.
Thank you.
Any other questions, council? Ms. Nadeau, when you talked about the additional revenue that will come in the $200,000 range based on people parking longer than 90 minutes, is that additional revenue based on the free parking going from 3 hours to an hour and a half?
Yes, it's based on that, and also the fact that right now, under the terms of the existing agreement, the gates go up at 7 o'clock at night, and they're open all on the weekends, so the validation at that point becomes moot. So it's looking at the projected theater ticket sales that were provided to us by Blue Fox, and extrapolating what we expect the revenue would be based on the fact that we think a typical stay is around 2.5 hours, not 90 minutes.
And the increasing number of permits that are allowed to be sold over time, do I understand correctly that that would mean that if this garage was not underutilized by permit holders or otherwise paying customers, that theater patrons would just have to take what's available, and there's no guarantee that those spaces may be available over time as those permit numbers go up?
Well, this gives us more flexibility with how we are able to sell permits, but it's not our intention to weigh or skew our sales to favor permits over daily users. We're looking for a balance. So we would always want to make sure that we have enough what we call transient parking spaces available versus monthly parking spaces available. So what I'm trying to say here is that when we look at how many permits we sell, we're looking at what is the occupancy level in the garage. And we want to make sure that we have enough spaces available for those transient daily users like theater patrons or people who are going to a restaurant or whatever. We're looking for balance, and this just gives us more flexibility to be able to sell more permits if our occupancy numbers show us that the garage is at a place where it can absorb more permit users.
Okay. I had another question, but I'm still trying to figure out if transients and parking cancel each other out.
How about hourly parkers? Do you like that better?
That's fine. Have we started selling the low-wage employee parking passes? And what's the response been? I mean, I know it's been a very short time.
Yes, it has been a very short time, and we have not had an impressive response yet. I am working, tomorrow I'm meeting with the Railroad Square Merchant Association, and I'm continuing to reach out to the chamber, and actually we're going to be meeting to see how we can work together to maybe promote this program more, because it is a challenge to get the word out to people who might benefit from it.
Okay, good. Any other questions? I do have one card. Merlin.
Hello. I am so glad that you're providing a little free parking for people who have the extra money to be able to go out and spend some recreation time. What's a ticket now? $10? I'm not sure. But I mean, let's be real. The reality is that this is a subsidy to capitalists who would like to make a little more profit by people spending entertainment money. So I'd just like you to consider where that 90 minutes worth of parking per vehicle that you're giving up could possibly go. Maybe it could go to cleaning some public restrooms overnight that need to stay open 24/7. So think about it.
Thomas Ells?
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm glad there's sort of an automatic microphone here. I spoke at the RUDAT regarding that's the Rural Urban Design Architectural team that came here to speak and organize the redevelopment, if you will, of Santa Rosa. And they cut off the microphone a couple times, and it was impossible to use the microphone, so I appreciate it. At that meeting, I proposed that, and I'd spoken to the architects before, that B Street be made to go all the way through instead, which would have gone through the Prince Greenway, but they hadn't built the Prince Greenway yet. And right outside here was proposed the Green Music Center. I'm sure you know, you probably were aware, but somehow they corralled it to Sonoma State, and the Santa Rosa Symphony was going to be right here. And so, and then instead we got the Roxy Theater, which is great, because we didn't get the Green Music Center. So there would be $450,000, $200,000 and $250,000 of payments, those over 90 minutes, and the others who were getting it free, $450,000. So one way to look at that is, wow, there's extra money. And another way to look at it is it's charging people to come here who we would like to come down here and utilize this space, whether it was the proposed potential Green Music Center or whether there was, so in other words, B Street would be the substitute instead of having Santa Rosa Avenue and Mendocino Avenue, and then you could actually have the square and so on, and it would make sense to have B Street go over there. That was the idea at the time, but then there would be an increased size of the entire square, if you will, and that you connect to the mall and have the people from the mall come over and encourage them. And that's really what something like a Green Center or a Roxy Theater is improved, it becomes an attraction, and people come down here to spend their money for the businesses. Maybe some of those funds that are generated, so one way to look at it is it's expense on the part of those patrons who come here, and another way is it's revenue, and maybe some of that revenue could be used, as he's saying, to offset some of the effects of having people down here, which would be also the homeless and have other bathrooms and things like that, because there's actually the income from that. That's an income of $450,000, which could be devoted. So as I said before, there's these parking revenues that they could go for buses, and they can go for other things that are impacts, and I would beg you, plead with you to please look at some of those funds to be used in that way. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ells. Further questions from the council? I do have another question. Has there been an analysis of the value of these 90 free minutes and how much parking revenue we lose over time by offering this?
Effective January 1st, through the progressive parking policies that you've approved, the first hour is going to be free at this garage. So the effective gain or value, I guess we'll call it, is the 30 minutes, because all patrons will get the first hour free at that garage effective the 1st of January. So I did actually look at the cost of the 30 minutes over a 15-year period, and keeping in mind it's an estimate, but based on projected ticket sales, it would be about $40,000 a year.
And do we have any similar analysis of the financial benefit to the city of having a theater downtown?
We did not do an economic impact analysis on this. It just didn't meet the threshold of something we would spend the money on for this. but other than the ancillary information that I shared, which is that we do see that in typically across the nation that there are synergies between evening and nighttime entertainment and theaters.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Sawyer, you have this item.
Thank you, Mayor. I would want to thank everyone involved in coming together with this agreement. They are not easy to negotiate, thanks to Blue Fox and our parking department and economic development department as well, and planning. These take a great deal of effort and a great deal of compromise, and so I appreciate that. I do want to clarify that the parking department and our transit are funded, they are enterprise funds, and one cannot just take their hand and dip into these various funds and use it for things outside of their purview. So it's, or their programming. We, as a city, cannot shuffle the funds quite the same way as the private sector. So we have major restrictions on how we use these funds, just for information for the public here this evening and those that are listening at home. With that, I'll move and introduce a resolution of the Council of the City of Santa Rosa approving a parking agreement with Blue Fox Partners for downtown Santa Rosa Theater Complex, and wait for the reading of the text.
Second.
That passes with 6 ayes. Thank you. Ms. Furtado, 14.4.
14.4, report Urban Housing Communities request to authorize issuance, sale, and delivery of tax-exempt multifamily housing revenue note in a maximum amount of $7,105,000 for the crossings on Aston Apartments. And Frank Hasanov from Housing and Community Services presenting.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor and council members, issuance of this tax-exempt note, which functions like a tax-exempt bond, will be the city's final green light for financing crossings on Aston, an affordable housing development located on John Richards Way by Aston Avenue and Petaluma Hill Road. This past June, the council conducted a public hearing and adopted a resolution reaffirming its official intent to issue the tax-exempt note to help finance the project. The project includes 27 residential units and 1 unit that's used as a community room in 14 duplexes. 26 of the units are targeted to families earning 30 to 60% of the area median income, and 1 unit is for the resident manager, and it's unrestricted. 24 of the units are 3-bedroom units, and 3 of the units are 1-bedroom units. The affordable rents and the income eligibility will be restricted for 55 years. The project is anticipated to start construction next month with passage of this, with approval of the note. It's expected, we learned just recently, to take 1 year rather than 10 months because contractors are in high demand right now. The financing for the project includes the proceeds of this note, with funds coming from Citibank and the city serving as the conduit issuer. Investor tax credit equity is provided by RBC Capital Markets, which is a global investment bank. The Housing Authority approved loans and also 6 project-based vouchers to support the development. And the developer will be deferring a portion of its developer fee. The 2 of the entities in the borrower, the Central Valley Coalition for Affordable Housing and Urban Housing Communities, have teamed up before in Santa Rosa. They developed the 49-unit crossings at Santa Rosa, which is on Jennings Avenue, and it was completed in 2008. Issuance of this note involves council approval and authorization and the execution and delivery of 6 documents, which are described both in the resolution and in the staff report. There are several benefits for this project. One is that we'll have some more units, but not only will we have more affordable units, These units have deep affordability. In fact, between the 26 units, between 30% and 60%, only 5 of them are at the 60% level. The remainder are between 30 and 50% of AMI. There's a high percentage of 3-bedroom units, which is a little bit unique for an affordable housing development, and that enables larger families to occupy the units. All the units will have, they're all duplexes, they all have garages, and they all have yards. And together, this is a unique form of affordable housing within the Housing for All spectrum. All financial costs and obligations for the issuance and the repayment of the note are the responsibility of the borrower, with no impact at all to the city's general fund. The source of repayment will be revenue from the operation of the project. In addition, tax-exempt multifamily housing financings are structured so that the city will have no financial liability to the bondholders should the owner default on its payment obligations. It is recommended by the Housing and Community Services Department that the Council, by resolution, authorize the sale, execution, and delivery of the tax-exempt City of Santa Rosa 2017 multifamily housing revenue note, the Crossings on Aston Apartments, and a maximum aggregate principal amount of $7,105,000. We'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. I'd like to point out that Stephen Malikian with our city's bond counsel is here with us to help answer any questions you might have, as well as Lori Zito, who is representing Urban Housing Communities, who is the borrower.
Thank you, Mr. Kasimov. Questions, Council? Mr. Tibbetts?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Kasimov, did the Housing Authority did it actually act as a lender, or was it the conduit to pass through funds?
The Housing Authority acted as a lender in a total amount of about approximately $5.4 million, in addition to authorizing the use of 6 project-based vouchers.
Okay, thank you. And how much development fees ended up getting deferred, and do you know what fees they were?
Well, this is the developer fee is basically their profit, and the total profit is $950,000, and they're deferring about $350,000 or $60,000, and they'll get that back over 13 years or so, but they don't get it in the beginning.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'll just make my comment now. Thank you for this and making housing a priority and obviously getting creative.
Other questions? I have a couple of cards. Anita LaFollette.
Excuse me, I had to get that right. I'm Anita LaFollette, and I'm an advocate for the homeless, as you probably remember. I just wanted to let you know, you were talking about another apartment complex that was funded for an upgrade, and then when it was upgraded, no one could afford it because the rents went up. So I want to encourage you, if you're going to fund these kind of units, that you put some kind of stipulation on them so there is a rent control and the people that live there don't have to move. I was helping a lady that was in the homeless shelter find a place to live, and we did find her a place. There's a new apartment complex called Malibu. And then she took her application. They promised she could have a place, and then she took her application back and told her that she was in a homeless shelter, and they refused to accept rapid rehousing. I think that should be another stipulation if you're going to fund housing that's affordable, that they take the kind of funds that homeless people have. Otherwise, you're not taking anybody off the street. Not really. See, because they require that you be sustainable to get into those apartments. That means they check your criminal record, and if you have a lot of tickets while you're out, and that you'll be able to pay the monthly rent, and that you have good references, and that you have a credit check, so they have to check your past references and your housing experience too. So it's quite difficult to qualify for these kind of units, especially because they tell you that they're 50%, but they won't really take anybody that has any of these problems. So nobody from the shelter here, Sam Jones, is going to get into those apartments. And I also want to let you know that we're not going to build our way out of this shelter crisis. There are too many people out in the street now, and you can't build that many homes that quickly. The trash that you mentioned earlier, I think it was you, Mr. Swentholm, right? The trash that they picked up out at Homeless Hill, you know, those are people's belongings, and you didn't let us go in there and pick them up so we could give them back to them. You know, they couldn't carry everything. They didn't even have a wheelbarrow. They certainly didn't have a car. And I'm just trying to figure out what I'm going to tell the people under the 6th Street undercrossing tomorrow morning. You know, they do the sweep on Wednesday morning about 8 o'clock. Where am I going to tell them to go this time? Because I got trouble last time I told them to go over to the Catholic Charities, and she got mad at me because that wasn't a good place. But the missing vets, too, they're probably out there, too. The missing vets that you're looking for, right? They're at the new encampment. Do you want to know where that is?
Please wrap up.
I'm not going to tell you.
Merlin.
So, low-cost housing, that's a good step. But let's remember that we have a housing crisis. 2, 3, probably more, 1,000, considering the folks that haven't been counted. I'd like to ask a couple questions. Does anyone know what kind of beds are available in the shelters for people that you're moving out of, your pilot program is moving out of homeless encampments like under the 101? No.
This isn't a time for dialogue. You can address the council, please.
Well, according to the Brown Act, I believe you can give brief replies. So does anyone, apparently the answer is no, that nobody knows. Does anyone know, is there no beds available in a waiting list? And if so, how big? Nobody knows, okay. So how about livable space? There's a hospital that is, I believe, empty or about to be empty, with however many livable rooms where people are actually stay long-term. Anybody know how many rooms there are there? How about hotel rooms that are vacant most of the year and then maybe get filled up when there's events like Ironman where you guys move out the homeless so that nobody can see them from under the underpasses? How many empty hotel rooms are there generally throughout the year? Nobody knows. Well, I apologize for misstating earlier. You know, I gave an idea for how some funds could be used that otherwise you could be getting from parking. I think there was a statement by one of the people on the council that you didn't have any imagination. Like maybe a floor of a parking space could be used to let people camp. Hey, free use of the parking spaces. So I think there's a crisis, there's an emergency right now, and you guys could be using some imagination to help address it. Thank you.
Adrian Lobby.
Thank you, council members. I'm Adrian Lobby from Homeless Action. I would like to echo Anita LaFollette's comments that as we build out affordable housing, as you work to try to induce people to get these housing projects going. We certainly support that, and we need more of that. But we need to have a sort of housing first consciousness about it, and we need to get in the habit of requiring people to house homeless people. This is the way that we're going to get people off the streets. And at this point, those two prongs of what you're trying to do, build more affordable housing and do something about our homeless population, they don't, there's no overlap. And so I'm really encouraging you and whatever staff that are involved in this to start working on procedures so that when we get proposals like this, it comes with some security that there is going to be a pipeline for homeless people to actually get into these units. Thank you.
That's all the cards I have. Are there any other questions? This had been on Mr. Oliveris's plate, but in his absence, I'll be proud to introduce a resolution that will bring us 27 affordable units for families in Santa Rosa. Mr. Ells, I don't have a card for you. Do you want to speak again on this item?
For me, yes. Yes, if I could.
Please.
Oops, I don't know what that is. Looks ominous. It is wonderful to allocate funds to housing, to affordable housing. And I know everyone was here and we talked about it, and this was one of the programs that, Aston was going to be one of the ones that was funded. And there was short-term notice about that, and seems to be, to me, in my knowledge of development, because development takes a long time, and most of those projects were going along, anticipating there'd be potential funding, and sure enough, there was. But if I do the math on this, there's 14 duplexes, and that's $500,000 a duplex that's being funded just by this part, and I don't know how much funding they have elsewhere, or $250,000 per unit. There's got to be a way, and I'm in support of affordable housing. Yay! Ouch. This one's an ouch, in the sense that, and I know it's 55 years and all that, and there's a lot of good to it, but those numbers are really, really high. That's a lot of money to spend in an emergency, and I wish we could find a way to get a balance on some of that some of those funds would be used for this kind of thing, and some of those funds would be used in the emergency right now that we have. And I know you're spending money over there at Sam Jones, but for the rest of the people, even a little money for safe parking or something that can really put a lot of people out of harm's way, because it really does take people out of harm's way. The harm that people are worried about isn't the homeless guy. The harm isn't the guy who lives down the street or anywhere else. The harm is that they're going to be arrested somewhere for a misdemeanor and have a $1,000 fine and lose their car, they lose their home. That's the thing that they're protected from in safe parking. They're protected from the police and a fine and a thing like that. That's what safe parking is about. People can have their children in that, and they don't have Child Protective Services come to them. So there's just a woman that I was told about, a veteran, who got a raw deal from her husband, and he's deducting the kids still, but she has the burden. And the three of them were living in, four of them, 3 children and the mother were living in their car, and her car broke down, and they had to rent a car, and the rental car has to go back now because they have no more funds, and they're out, and that's a veteran, and we don't know what to do. Thank you.
Ms. Combs.
Thank you. I had a couple of quick questions. First, I want to thank you very much. We need affordable 3-bedroom units, and I appreciate that you are working to get us some affordable 3-bedroom units. Can you clarify the 30 to 60 AMI for me? Is that a limit? I'm trying to figure out, sometimes we say 30 AMI and we include the people who have less than 30, and sometimes we say 30 AMI and we don't, it's like the bottom is not included. Is this 30 to 60 or does it include 0 to 30?
So the 30 is anything up to 30%, and then the 50 would be, or
Okay.
60% would be up to that amount.
So
that amount and under would qualify.
Right, so these are the hardest to construct because the 0 to 30 group, you can do permit streamlining and you can do tax breaks, and you're still not going to reach down as far as the 0 to 30s and 30s to 30 to 60s. You have to have significant subsidy for those. So I really appreciate the Housing Authority and the contractor for bringing this project forward. Do we have any process at this point to ensure that any percent go to people currently homeless or in shelters? Do we have a process like that at all? That's an interesting idea. Maybe we could talk about that sometime.
There are 6 vouchers in here, so to the extent that a voucher holder might be homeless or low income, if they're homeless, they're probably very low income, that 30% or less. People at some point would need to contact the developer to get on a list and to find out what the availability is.
Okay, I just want to thank you again for bringing this forward, but I also think that maybe sometime in the future we'll have that other conversation too. Thanks so much.
Other questions? I'll move a resolution of the Council of the City of Santa Rosa authorizing the sale, execution, and delivery of the City of Santa Rosa 2017 multifamily housing revenue note, the Crossings on Aston Apartments, authorizing the execution and delivery of a funding loan agreement, a borrower loan agreement, and a regulatory agreement, and authorizing the execution and delivery of and approving other related documents and approving other related actions in connection therewith, and waive further reading of the text.
Second.
Your votes, Council. And that passes with 6 ayes. Thank you very much. Mr. Hurtado, 14.5.
Thank you. Report ordinance adoption, ordinance of the Council of the City of Santa Rosa amending Title 20 of the Santa Rosa City Code, Table 2-6 of Section 20-23.060, file number REZ 16-001. Claire Hartman, Deputy Director, reporting.
Good evening. This item is a report item, and I'll explain why it's a report item in just a moment. But just before we get to procedures, I'd like to talk about the ordinance that's in front of you and what that ordinance entails. So the ordinance would amend our zoning code, and it would allow a land use lodging, hotel, or motel in the commercial office district in the city. And it would allow it with a minor conditional use permit. So where is the commercial office districts in the city? They're throughout the city. You can see here highlighted. They're not large sectors of our community, but they're throughout, and oftentimes they're adjacent to commercial districts because there's a lot of synergies with our retail business service designations as there are with our office designations. So why is the item brought to you tonight as a report item, and what is specifically before you? This is essentially a second reading of this ordinance. So let me explain. In 2016, the project was initiated by an applicant, and it was processed through pre-application discussions, staff analysis, and then also Planning Commission consideration. And of course, the Planning Commission held a public hearing, and that was back in September 22nd, 2016, upon which, after some discussion of the item, it was approved unanimously by the Commission and moved forward to the City Council. November 29th, 2016, the City Council also considered the item and after some discussion, did also pass this amendment forward and approved it and introduced the ordinance by a 6-0 vote. There was 1 abstention. So the item is before you as a second reading. Normally, the very next week or the next available agenda, the item scheduled for what we call as a second reading of the ordinance gives the public and the city council a chance to see the ordinance in its final form, the way the votes laid out, and it's an opportunity before the ordinance is signed and implemented. And ordinances like this are effective 31 days after that second reading. So there was a inadvertent error in that we did not schedule the item shortly after. Then time passed, and there was no, as noted throughout the hearings, there was no immediate project that was riding on this. So we didn't notice it until recently, and now we would like to correct that error. So that's what's before you tonight. But I did want to provide the opportunity to show what was the basis of that decision, because I know there's a couple new council members that weren't in attendance in November 2016. But I do want to assure you that certainly we looked at the general plan land use designations, and particularly where office designations lie. So we looked at all these areas of the city and discussed them at length. We looked at general plan text policies that balance opportunities for new land uses in the city, land use and livability, as well as economic vitality. And then let's see if this highlights. No? Okay, so this is a section out of our zoning code that shows in our commercial districts all the types of, this is not even all of the list, but it shows you how lodging, hotel or motel would be amended in our zoning code. So essentially it's this piece here which says in the commercial office district there would now be a new opportunity for consideration. It doesn't mean that every commercial office district property is going to have a hotel. Certainly not. What it does is allow a consideration through a use permit process, which, as you know, is a public process, subject to conditions, subject to findings that need to be made. And here are the findings that need to be made, and primary findings are with fit and compatibility, scale, and make sure there's no negative impacts to surrounding properties. So under this sort of protection of consideration, it was passed by the City Council in 2006. And certainly we looked at compliance with the California Environmental Quality Act, and actually took some time to do some more specific impact studies to make sure that this was a prudent path for the city. In consideration of public comments that were received throughout the process, and a lot of our public comments that were related to this was a bit of confusion about was there a project with this rezoning, and that misconception that by allowing it somehow we're going to have hotels in all our commercial office districts. Again, it's just to allow the consideration of that type of use. So the recommendation before you tonight is accept the second reading of this ordinance, and that's what's before you tonight.
Questions, council? Ms. Combs?
Can you just quickly review what it means to have a minor use permit and what public input would be possible if a project were recommended for any one of these sites? Some of them seem obviously well suited, and others of them it's not as clear how neighbors would react. So if you could just really quickly clarify the minor use permit and the public comment availability when a project comes forward.
Okay, so it's as per the zoning code amendment, would be a minor use permit. So the review authority for that is the zoning administrator. So there is a public process, meaning there is a public notice of the event, the meeting, an opportunity to comment and attend and discuss the project and raise issues that, requesting that the issues be addressed. So there's that element. And then there's also these required findings. So it's not a by right. You need to make all these findings for the review authority to grant permission of the use permit. And so oftentimes that involves a lot of discussion and analysis to see if we can make those findings. So certainly not every site is going to be found to meet, depending on the scale of the proposal, to meet these findings, but some might find some compatibility and consistency with these findings. Now, as a minor use permit, there's an appeal process, so should there be a disagreement amongst either the applicant or the public and they wish to for a second opinion, if you will. They can file an appeal, and the appeal body is the Planning Commission. And so they would have the opportunity as well.
Other questions? Thomas?
I should put this down like this. So I'll just keep it really low. Thank you for the opportunity to speak, and my memory doesn't appear to be as good as Dwayne DeWitt's on some of these things, but don't I recall that Councilmember Combs had mentioned and got reaffirmation at that time that 50% of, up to 50% of commercial areas could be by right housing converted? Isn't that the same meeting in the one that City Manager McGlynn excused himself for over caution on conflict of interest, and that there was a Hopper Avenue or Hopper Lane proposal that came forward? That's the proposal that came forward, and with a hotel proposed. Is that my memory correct on that? Because I know there was a meeting like that. I'm just not sure if that was the November 29th meeting. And I said that was really interesting and it was really great because if they are transient housing, eventually they could become housing, and that would be really good. Because, well, we need housing. But I want to go to the point of how it was internally generated. It became an internally generated proposal, if you will, once there was this outside proposal. And I don't know what happened with the outside proposal. Apparently that was either approved elsewhere separately, or thought it was a part of this, but I would hope that we would get that development. But as far as the generation of a change in zoning regarding transient housing, but it's housing within commercial, and like to really be able to look at that as far as how we can have more of that conversation going forward, that it not just be some kind, for instance, with regard to what has turned out to be a very restricted zoning of general commercial that doesn't really end up being functional for the CHAP, that maybe there's other properties that could be included in that, rather than, because when you think of the zoning is actually commercial general, so CG, but general commercial, you get the idea that that's any commercial, and I'm not really sure that those are entirely contiguous, commercial general and general commercial. In other words, was that the absolute intent of that, to make that narrow? Because it turns out that's very narrow for the CHAP, and our understanding of was that it would be very wide and incorporate all the commercial generally commercial, not commercial general, and that the zoning questions could be addressed in that, maybe internally generated questions. Thank you.
Council, are there any further questions? Ms. Combs, you have this item.
Ordinance of the Council of the City of Santa Rosa amending Title 20 of the Santa Rosa City Code, Table 2-6 of Section 20-23.060, Commercial District Land Uses and Permit Requirements, File Number REZ16-001, and waive further reading of the text.
Second.
Your votes. It has 6 ayes. Thank you. Ms. Hurtado, written communications.
We have 2 items, Mayor. A letter in opposition of Senate Bill 623, Water Quality, Safe and Affordable Drinking Water Fund. It's provided for your information. And also letters to oppose, unless amended, AB 1668 and SB 606, Water Management Planning, which are provided for your information.
Thank you. Any questions, Council, on this? All right. Go to our second public comment period. Adrian Lobby. She'll be followed by Carol Cranston.
Hello again, Adrienne Lobby from Homeless Action. Let's do this up here. We do now have a two-tier system of human beings in Santa Rosa. We have people who can use the bathroom, go into a store, use the bathroom. We have people who can't. We have people who can use the park, take their dogs out, sit around on the grass, and we have people who can't. There are numerous other ways that we have a two-tiered system, but what we have before us now is the next iteration of the pilot project to clear out the encampments. So we have a plan to clear out the encampment under 101 freeway. We did this with Homeless Hill with 50 beds at the shelter. We have some number of beds left, maybe somewhere between 10 and 20. The shelter is now in chaos. It had as many as 12 dogs in it from one report. It has to adjust to all these new rules. You all, and I'm not criticizing Catholic Charities. Catholic Charities and you all have adopted this housing first philosophy. You're attempting to see if it works. And this is what we can expect. It's a transition period. And it's really tough on the people who've been staying at the shelter before this happened. It's really tough on the new people who were living up on Homeless Hill and are now down here in a new situation. And of course, it's really, really tough on the people who were up at Homeless Hill who are now living, at least one of them, in a storage unit. If we're going to attempt to clear out 101, where are these people going to go? They're not going to fit into the shelter. And we have no proof. For those of you who keep asking for evidentiary and, let's see what really works, the best practices, we're not even going to get a preliminary report till January for what happened with our attempt to clear out Homeless Hill. So now we've got 20 to 50 people more that we're going to move along. They will go to Doyle Park. They will go to Railroad Square. We're going to hear more and more neighborhood complaints. And so you're really between a rock and a hard place. You have a plan, sort of, but it's not working. It's not really effective for what you want to do. You've promised the neighbors that you're going to do these things. It's not going to work. And you have really the burden of the human suffering. People are getting arrested and cited in Doyle Park for laying on a sleeping bag. Not asleep, reading a book. We need encampments. We need sanctioned encampments, and we need a bunch of them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Levy. Carol Cranston. Is Carol Cranston here? Courtney Cox.
Hello, my name is Courtney Cox. I was here in the spring, but then I just saw a lot of the national scene replaying itself in our local community, and it was really distressing. I then had a meeting with Tom, and it was so disheartening. It sent me into a 4-month depression, and I'm just now coming out of it. So I'm here again. Hopefully I could stick around. But the reason I'm speaking today is for those who are really the most exposed in our community. They are vulnerable. The Housing First pilot program is state-sanctioned violence and terror. To identify camps and plan raids and evictions without a clear plan of where these people are going to go for the long term is just really cruel and inhumane. It's really disgusting. The increased police engagement, as it said in the host report that the meeting is going to come out, it's not engagement, it's intimidation, it's fear, it's harassment, it's a violation of their human rights and liberties. This crackdown on the most exposed members is definitely, it's violating their rights by like illegal searches and seizures of persons and their belongings, ticketing and fines where people are accumulating criminal records and they're going to jail. It's just an endless loop. I see this just being a person of color, that you can't give anybody a reason. Don't give anybody a reason, because as soon as you get in the system, you're never gonna get out. That's why I don't live in Chattanooga, Tennessee anymore, because it's a system that they put you in and you can't do anything wrong ever, because it's an endless loop. It's a vicious cycle on purpose. And that's what you're creating here. With this program, you're creating, perpetuating, and it's state sanctioned. You're agreeing to this. You're saying that this is the right thing, this is a victory. This is a vicious cycle that you're creating to hurt people, to take away their opportunity, to take away their lives. You're perpetuating that. And then you're saying that's a victory. It's disgusting. And what happens, like we're hearing, when the beds are full, the vouchers run out, everyone has misdemeanors, and they're in jail, and they're out being moved along, violently, ticketed and harassed, terrorized by police who are being more and more militarized. We are all guests. We are all guests in this home. This land doesn't belong to us. It belongs to those who are indigenous, the Pomo people. We're all guests. And I don't know what you think that you have, a piece of paper that separates you from those in the streets, but it doesn't mean anything to me. And it doesn't mean anything to the people who are out there on the streets. We're all guests, and we have to respect this land. We have to honor this land. And it's not yours. It's not mine. We are guests.
Thank you. Your time is up. Merlin.
We have got a humanitarian crisis here. 2,000-3,000 people more in Sonoma County alone, don't have a place to sleep, don't have a place to eat safely, don't have a place to spend with their families safely, don't have a place to go to the bathroom safely. I'm here to talk about Doyle Park. I wish my house bordered on Doyle Park so that I could keep a watch on whether you're allowing one of the few public spaces that we have to afford a little bit of safety to the people who need it, or whether you're enforcing draconian ordinances to punish them further for their suffering. Where's the agenda item tonight? Addressing homelessness. We are in a state of emergency here. There are people suffering more than any of you would even know. We're in a state of emergency. Where's the agenda item? You should be addressing this every single week until it's dealt with. You should be using your imaginations. You should not be trying to shove it under the rug and ignore it. You should be doing whatever it takes. Our friends, our community members, our family are suffering. Where's the heart? How much of this are you spending on businesses who'd like to make a little more profit? Week after week after week after week. You could at least keep this bathroom out here open 24/7, right out here. You got a public bathroom for when people need to come and use this building during the day. You could at least keep it open overnight. What's the harm? Have to be clean a little bit more? I'm sure you have the imagination to deal with that. You could be rezoning things so that we can use them for good humanitarian purposes, not for business. You could be providing free services that could be used to help people who are really in need and suffering all the time, instead of to make a little more profit for businesses. Subsidies for those who want to make more on the backs of those who are hurting. Use some imagination. Stay on the ball. Priorities. Suffering comes before profit. Come on, guys and girls, and everyone.
Thomas Ells.
Public comment on non-agenda items? Great. I was just outside, thank you. I missed the earlier time. Unfortunately, the woman who said, I'm so glad you could allow everyone to talk at that time. No, some people were not allowed to talk at that time. I just wanted to mention that Anaheim, there was a big article on Anaheim and, the homeless situation along the Santa Ana River there. And it's right near, well, it's in Imagination Town, Disneyville, or should I say ABC Cap Cities and whatnot, who basically control the whole place, and the Mighty Ducks. It's right along there. There's a ton of homeless. There's thousands of them. And are these growing? I don't know what's happening here. They don't look good. So there was a really big article, and they also have a hepatitis outbreak. And it's really big, and it's really bad. It could be a public health nightmare, and it's really important to get ahead of those things. We could have it, anybody could come into town from there, breeze through. There's thousands and thousands of people who are not homeless here. They're homeless somewhere else, and they come through here every day. There's like, I don't know how many. Well, there's how many a day? 900 a day, but over 365 days a year, it adds up to literally tens of thousands of people. So anybody that comes up here from there can be bringing that and deposit that with us. So it's really significant. And what's happening there, though, in Anaheim is they're not allowed to close the camp because of Jones versus City of Los Angeles. And they're making sure that they have places for those people to go before fully. They cannot say, oh, this group of people, whoever they are going to be allowed to have housing, and we're going to prosecute or persecute them, and they got to clean up this part, and they get to go to housing or not, and we're not going to prosecute these people. They have to have housing for all of them. And that's really what we need to do here, is make sure that we have housing for all of the people, because you cannot prosecute. And as I said, there's a woman with 3 children in a car that's no longer their car because they had to rent a car. There are people all over. We don't have safe parking. We don't have safe camping. We don't have, we really have an ineffective CHAP program. And an ineffective safe parking. There is some safe parking, but I think there's about 20 cars, or a little more than 20 cars right now. There's hundreds of cars all around, and we need to consider Jones versus City of Los Angeles, and we need to come together on all that, on a bigger program, a wider program. Thank you.
Annette Pearson. Is Annette here?
So I'm here to talk about the issue of where people can go to the bathroom also. And I'm just going to hit a couple of really high points. Per the census that was done last year, the homeless census, about 2,900 people, homeless people in Sonoma County. About 2,000 of them are unsheltered. That means they don't have any place, they don't have any place to go
Please
to the
speak
bathroom.
into the microphone so people can hear.
Okay, they don't have any place to go to the bathroom. So figure 2,000 people a day that don't have any place to go to the bathroom. The average person urinates between a quart and half a gallon of urine per day. So the math's pretty simple. We're looking at about 800 gallons of urine a day. The average person defecates between 3/4 of a pound and a pound of solid waste per day. So again, pretty easy math. You're looking at about 1,500 to 2,000 pounds of solid waste per day. People don't have a place to go to the bathroom. So a lot of people have talked about a lot of things here tonight that really need to be addressed. There need to be permanent encampments. But right now, it would be very, very, very simple to put some porta potties in some of the areas where we know folks are staying. It's just not that hard, and it's not that expensive. There's a lot of urine out there, and there's a lot of fecal matter out there, and it's a public health concern. And if for no other reason, we ought to be addressing it for that reason. That's what I have to say. Thanks.
Bob Hanson. Bob Here's, he took off. Jerry Lalonberg, I think he left also. And Bob Hanson. That's, the meeting is adjourned.